Okay. Hello, everybody. Pablo. No. Pablo got caught spamming. Pablo, did you run into Omen again? So heaven. Okay. So. We'll be looking at this. Actually, I should probably turn my desktop audio on. And the music off, I think. No, you couldn't really hear. Well, hold on. I need to turn the desktop audio up a bit. I completely forgot to freaking make sure that you could actually hear this thing. Desktop audio, yeah. Let's do that. No, you still can't hear anything. Didn't we say no to this experiment? Yeah. Bro, I completely forgot about this. Wait, why is it not though? Like, it should be literally just as simple as doing desktop audio. But whatever, I'll just add an audio source, I don't really care. And there we go. Alright, so today's video is going to be a little bit different than normal. Alright, there's going to be just a little bit different than normal. There we go. There's going to be just be a little bit different than normal. There we go. There's going to be just be a little bit different than normal. There we go. There's going to be just be a little. Yo, why is it echoing so much? Yeah, I hear it. Why is it echoing? I turned off the desktop audio. Bro, that's crazy. Yeah, wait. Let's... A little bit different than normal. There we go. Yeah, I hear it. Yeah, I hear it. Oh, it's me. It's everything that's echoing. Why is it everything that's echoing? I'm gonna remove that because everything went to crap as soon as I added it. Yeah, I mean, everything seems fine now. Bro, that was weird as hell, actually. This? 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 Nope. It just keeps piling up on itself. What is... Wait, why does that happen? I have never had that happen before. Like, this really shouldn't be that difficult, right? The echo is crazy. It should, literally, I should be able to just use the desktop audio. And it should be fine. But no. No. That is wild, actually. Hold on. Bro, there's no shot that I can't. Imagine entering the wrong ID and winning. Bro. It might happen, I don't know. I guess I probably wouldn't know. Bro, I wish that was what was happening. Why? Is it like... Okay, what if I mute those two? And then I add it back? Hold on. Everything may or may not break, but it shouldn't. Everything may or may not break, but it shouldn't. Everything may or may not break, but it shouldn't. It did. Fair enough. Bro, I want it to start. Don't get on with me, okay? I don't know what's happening. Like, legitimately, actually, like, I actually don't know what the problem is. I have, like, basically everything muted. Restart everything? I might have to, but that would be a pain in the butt, right? The mic? I don't know if it's the mic. I can try unplugging it, plugging it back in. Wonder if you can still hear me. No, yeah, okay. Have you tried turning it on and off again? Well, you first have to turn it off, and then you'd have to turn it back on. But no, I haven't done that, otherwise it'd be 2 streams. But why is, like, I don't understand. Oh. No, I think I got it. Hold on. No. Wait. Oh. Well, the reason's because it's muted. Oh. Well, the reason's so today's video is going to be a little bit different than normal. Yeah, I'm gonna have to turn that up. Right about there. Normal. There's going to be just some random gameplay in the background, and I'm simply going to be talking. There's going to be just some random gameplay in the background, and I'm simply going to be talking. There's going to be just some random gameplay in the background, and I'm simply going to be talking. Nope. Everything went to crap. Why is that though? I don't know. Like it's really strange. I think it's picking up my stream audio, but it's in a completely different window. You know what I'm saying? And like I don't really know what I can do about that. Like I have it in a completely different window. There's nothing here. Is the video on speaker? No. I mean I have like headphones plugged in. For one thing, and for another thing, I have not had anything, and I haven't had a laptop on speaker in years. I don't do that. The mic is not picking it up because it's not on speaker. I can tell the difference between headphones and speaker. I'm just really confused. If I tried this. So this is the... What does this sound like? Nope. Garbage. Try something else. And... Try it on Discord? As in what? As in like pull it up as a like a watch thing on Discord and do it from there? I guess I could. Public Buzz, stop sending me stuff. You don't even know if it's gonna work. Platinum sent a fix. No, he just sent a random suggestion. He doesn't know what's going on. Like all of my desktop audio devices are disabled, with the exception of one, which is always muted. I had it on default, but now I'm trying just like different stuff. But I mean, one of them might work. You never know. Rest in peace. Okay, last one. What's happening? I'm trying to fix... I don't know why it's not picking up this audio. Like actually, I don't understand why it's... I've never had this issue before. I've done this before, and I've never had this issue before. But I guess what it's doing is it's picking up the audio from my other window that has like the stream open, right? So this is like the thing I'm going to be watching, and then this is, and then on the side you can't see it, but you know the thing what you're watching right now, you're like the actual stream, so I can see this, the chat and everything. So like, I don't know. I'm very confused, honestly. You're gonna go move your car? Sanji in disguise? Yeah, Sanji will move it for you, there you go. Oh, hello Batman, by the way. No, this was from January, bro. I don't have it laying around. My next best option would be to download it and then watch it again. Pablo Sanji moved it already, real. You already know. Yeah, if you're gonna ask me what's better, this or that, that is the entire reason that I make the tier list, right? Just go watch that. Legit though, I do not understand what the problem is. I may or may not have to like restart everything. I wouldn't think that I would have to do that. But like maybe. Could also, well, I mean like it shouldn't matter. People are still confused about Aegis and Redeem. People are confused about all kinds of things, bro. They'll be like, should I get Chain Gun 6 or Storm Rack 6? Doesn't matter how many times you tell them, they'll still ask. That wasn't an actual question, but thank you for confirming that you've, you know, recalled it. At least one thing. Who is your favorite clanmate? That's a crazy question. Cause like, you can't say one without all the others, you know, making all of the others seem worse, right? Two 11. Yeah, we know Pablo's favorite clanmate. Pablo, don't spam 211, please. It is 2:11, but yeah, don't go crazy with it. Oh. How long did you time him out for? Never mind, Pablo is Ruffles' favorite. Omen is Pablo's favorite. That's who it is. I'm literally just sitting here, just like staring at nothing. Like I'm looking at the Streamlabs thing. I don't know. What the hell? I can't get audio from that. No, I don't think so. Application audio capture, no. Audio output capture, probably not. Desktop audio. Well, it's probably okay. So like, look, is it gonna? What if I? Hold on. What if I mute the? What if I mute the tab? What if I mute the tab instead of muting the YouTube itself? Maybe. Look, I want to try whatever the hell. Well, I guess I can't really tell. Alright, so today's video is going to be a little bit different than... Well, I guess I can't really tell. Alright, so today's video is going to be a little bit different than... Well, I guess I can't really tell. Oh! It is! It's the damn browser. Okay, hold on. Hey, hold on. I know it's echoing, but hear me out. I think it's only when I unmute the stream. Hear me out. Okay, I'm gonna play like 5 seconds of this, and then I'm gonna pause it. I'm not gonna do anything. All right, so today's video is going to be a little bit different than normal. There's going to be... I'm not gonna listen to it myself. You just tell me if there's any echo still. I actually don't think that there will be. No echo. Ha! Got it. Beautiful. I was sabotaging myself, that's why. It is. It's capturing, like, regardless of what I do, it's capturing the audio from the stream and from this. I don't know why, but it just is. Okay. So, like, don't question it, I guess. Anyway. It was 30 minutes. I'll never get back. All right. So, here's the plan. I'm going to watch this. Like, it's like 30 minutes. I made this in January, right? So it's been almost a year, not quite. But I made this in January. So I think, I think it's close enough. And basically, I'm just gonna go through the things that I said and kind of decide if I think that they've improved it or not. You can't read Arabic. Wait. No, it's just his name. That's not... He's not writing in Arabic, I don't think. Is Bastion better than Sentinel? You should watch my tier list video to find out that. Yeah, just copy paste Tier list vid. You'll be pasting that a lot in the chat, bro. Shows his Arabic on phone. What do you mean? Like his name, but I don't see any like actual. Anyway, doesn't matter. Just some random gameplay in the background, and I'm simply going to be talking. Obviously, you saw the title and thumbnail, so the only thing that I'm going to say before I get into it is that I'm not taking anyone's side here. I'm not here trying to voice the complaints of the community, because the community honestly complains about some stupid things. And this is still true. Very often, people will complain about things that don't matter, or things that, like, if they changed it, they'd be more upset, right? I can think of, like, at least 3 examples off the top of my head. Like, this... People they'll complain about stuff, but like if you changed it, it would be worse. Like take skill-based matchmaking, for example. How else are you going to determine matchmaking? Purely by SP? If it was purely by SP, then tanking would be even easier, and everyone would be tanking, and there'd be no way around it. So some level of skill-based matchmaking is kind of ideal. Why don't you stream on Twitch or something else? I used to, actually. The reason I don't is because, like, everybody already watches me here, you know? So it's like, why would I go somewhere else where I don't have anybody there? And I'm going to talk about a couple issues that the community voices that are actually not issues, and why I believe so. What I'm trying to do here is just be a voice of reason, right? If it's bad for the game, if I believe that it's bad for the game, then I'm going to voice that and kind of give my reasoning for what the issues are. Not necessarily what the most popular complaints are. So yeah, just getting that out of the way. Okay, so the first big issue is probably the most obvious one, and the first big issue is that this video is like 30 minutes long. If I had actually cut out all of the freaking pauses in my sentences, probably could have got it down to like 20. Is one that everybody will agree on, and that would be the A-coin gain. It's so hard to get that resource, and it's such a necessity, especially when you progress to like tier 6. I think pretty much everything besides Brickhouse, and possibly Graviton 10 if it's in tier 7. I don't know. This is still mostly true. There's actually a pretty effective way to get to tier 7 by spending almost exclusively credits and spending almost 0 acorns. But you won't end up with very good stuff, obviously. And yeah, that's always an issue. Bro, there's literally one legendary mech that costs credits, and it's Brickhouse, which is probably the worst legendary mech. So that's bad. And I mean, in terms of weapons, actually, it's not too bad. Usually, I don't think that, not the 12, but usually at least the 10, sometimes the 16, in terms of like energy variants for weapons. Those are quite often for credits. Actually, the 10s are some of the best ones to have for credits too. Because you can, you get that and then you duplicate it, and a free-to-play player especially, they're going to be with rank 6 medium mechs for a very long time. Like, they're not going to be maxing anything out super soon. So, like, that's pretty reasonable, honestly. And then as they're spending copious amounts of credits upgrading their mechs, they can, then save their A-coins, because you don't really need it for rank ups after that. They can then save their acorns for like the 12 energy variants if they really want. If you get Brick House, then you can get the Graviton Implant range, which is very useful. What? How are those two correlated? 10s are all credits except for Carbine and Minigun. And EM Rifle and Railgun. And Disruptor and Pods, yeah. Mostly they are credits, yes. And that's what I said. It's like mostly the 10s, sometimes the 16 is also credits. But in general, you know, you get what I'm saying. Like, obviously they don't want too many things to be for credits because otherwise everyone's just going to go for everything that costs credits. But like, there's like 0 mechs to do thing. 0 mechs for credits. You know what I'm saying? Like basically none whatsoever. It's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, tier 7, I think everything besides Brick House costs Acoins, and costs a lot of Acoins too. So it's like after that, there's no buying anything with credits. It's just you have copious amounts of Acoins or you don't, and it really limits the number of players who are able to access those higher tiers. Now, obviously, it's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be like, well, I've been playing for 3 months. I don't know why I'm not in tier 8 yet. Like, obviously, you're not going to have a max hanger that quickly unless you spend money. Like, I'm sorry, but and this will always be true, right? Even if they make everything available for free to play, make it easier to get stuff. You know, they're always going to make it so it's like it's much faster if you just spend money. But yeah, no, it's I have like the Mech Arena master database. There's a thing here. There's a stat here for it's like the cheapest cost to unlock the next tier for each one. The cheapest cost to get into tier 8 is with 9,000 Acoins. The cheapest cost to get into tier 9 is with 44,000 Acoins. Like, it goes crazy, bro. It really steps up. Now, like, you know, again, they don't want everything to be credits or super easy to get. But I mean, at the same time, like, even if you had credit options, it doesn't necessarily mean that the credit options are the best options, right? Like, I think some should just, you know, some mechs should be credits, some mechs should be Acoins, and it shouldn't necessarily be, I don't know. I mean, thinking about even tier, what is it, 6? Even tier 6, all the mechs there cost Acoins except for Sentinel, I think. Yeah, but there's like 3 or 4 other ones that cost Acoins. And then that cost is tripled in the next tier for legendaries. Tier 10 shouldn't be a thing. It's a matter of time, right? So either they jam-pack the existing tiers with more stuff that nobody's gonna ever buy because it's a lower tier thing, right? If you're in tier 7 and you're trying to unlock tier 8, you're not gonna buy stuff from tier 6, right? So there's kind of like, there's no point in adding a ton of stuff to existing tiers. That's why they added tier 9, is because yeah, because they don't want to pack too much into one tier, which like kind of makes sense, but yeah, whatever. What I'm trying to say is tier 10 probably will exist at some point. Just make it like 1 million credits. Well, okay, you're saying bad mechs should be that. I don't necessarily think that the reason certain mechs cost credits is because they are bad. Now, some mechs are definitely worse than others, and the ones that cost credits do tend to be worse. But there's only a few cases where how many mechs are there that even cost credits? There's like what, 5, something like that. It's not many. So yeah, I don't necessarily think that's the case, because otherwise, you know, you could apply the same logic to weapons, right? They'd make the good ones cost all A coins, and then the bad ones would cost all credits, but that's not what we see, right? We saw Stormwreck 16 costing credits. So, like, yes, to a degree, I agree that, like, they should probably make the bad mechs cheaper, or at least just buff them. I mean, ideally they would buff them, because if they make it cheaper, like Arachnos, right? It's really bad, but it's also free. So, like, if they buff it at this point, then they're giving people something that's free that they get long before you unlock Guardian. You can get Arachnos, and it's already strong when you get it, but it'd be like hella strong if they buffed it. So they kind of don't want to. And that's just kind of, yeah, it's just kind of the case. So they can't reduce costs for things that they're going to buff. So I would prefer that they buff stuff rather than reduce the cost, because reducing the cost is basically just them giving up and being like, yeah, it's never going to be good. But yeah, more mechs need to cost credits. I was hoping Nomad would, but of course not. Of course not. The truth is, as a free-to-play, there's no reasonable way that you could get to tier 8 pretty much ever the way that it is right now. And that's not... In all fairness, there is... The only things that you would even want from tier 8 are Stormwreck 16 and Nomad. Nomad has actually fallen off a bit, and competitive players aren't really using it anymore. Stormwreck 16 is really good, and probably it's worth getting, but yeah, I mean, like, for the most part, tier 7 is kind of just where you sit. I was gonna say this stream chat sucks, but then Batman showed up and it's all okay now. Hey, look! I was gonna say I've seen much worse, but of course I have. My point is, at least I'm not getting asked tons of ridiculous questions. I mean, except for this one guy who's asking if Stormwreck Gatecrasher is good for tournaments, which, like, I don't know how I would know that. You wish you could choose which rank to buy something at? The reason certain things cost, the reason legendary mechs cost what they cost is because they're at rank 5. Like, if you were to take the credit and Daycoin value of the rank ups from rank 4 to rank 5 and convert all of that into either credits or A-coins, you'd end up with what we currently have, which is the, 9,000 plus A-coin legendaries with like 4,000 A-coin epics. So they don't even do it by grade, it's entirely by rank. So what I'm saying is, if you could choose which rank to purchase it at, then you'd just buy a bunch of legendary stuff and you wouldn't bother getting any of the low tier stuff because it costs the same amount and it's just better. Not okay to me. Now, the way that they have the tiers set up is to try to bunch players together in tiers 5 and 6, and they've done this effectively. This is purposeful, by the way. They make it significantly harder to get to tier 7 on purpose. They do that so that the larger portion of players are kind of condensed into like the mid game, and everybody has fairly similar stuff while they're all, you know, at different stages of saving for different items in tier 7.
And this is true. They've specifically said it, right? They want to make it specifically hard for people to reach the end game type SPs and item levels and stuff like that, which I can understand for multiple reasons. First off, the kind of like mid-game area is probably the best place to have most of your players, and that, you know, like, that makes sense. And kind of putting that, I don't want to say cutoff point, but a choke point anyway, that very much limits you, and kind of keeps a lot of people in the same area, and you know, people progress a lot slower there. But the other reason is, like, okay, what happens after someone reaches endgame? Most people will just get bored because they don't have anything to grind for. They spent how many months grinding, possibly years grinding, right? And so, you know, now they have a maxed hanger. It's all meta stuff. They'll enjoy it for a little while, but unless the meta changes and they have something new to get, then you know, they're just gonna get bored and leave. What is your #1 top most meta competitive hanger? Did you see as in mine, or what would I consider the #1 top most competitive hanger? Either way, the answer is in the video that I uploaded not long ago that was like a hanger building guide. Do you think the availability of Guardian system crash range makes Guardian a lot more relevant? It could. It doesn't for me, because Revoker exists, and as long as Revoker exists, anything with system crash, especially a short-range system crash, is not going to work, pretty much ever. So, unless I get really lucky and my opponents aren't using Revoker, which, spoiler, doesn't happen, then it just dies really quickly, regardless of range. For other people, it probably is really nice. Yeah.
Or even own a couple items in tier 7, but all of their hangers are relatively even. And that's a good idea. However, bunching players together and like stalling them at mid-game is fine, but I don't think hard locking free-to-play players from ever reaching tier 8 reasonably, or just endgame.
What is considered mid-game player by SP? How they plan to group them together? Matchmaking is clearly not making that happen. What do you mean? So, I mean, mid-game player is generally anyone who's in like tier 6, tier 7 in the Gear Hub. They probably have between like 4 and 8,000 SP, generally. You're 6K and you've played 11K opponents, and that's because the tournament mode's scuffed right now. Azure, that's what was happening a minute ago, until I friggin' fixed it.
Just period is absurd. Like that's basically what they've done, and everybody kind of knows that at this point. Before the gear hub, yeah. it was possible, and I knew a few people who were in what I would consider to be endgame hangers, and they were free to play, and so, you know, right, that...
This was possible at the time. This was, again, this video is from January, right? This was during the disc launcher, railgun, EM rifle meta. All of those weapons were available for free-to-play players. Nowadays, the meta is almost exclusively Revoker and Stormrack. Stormrack is available for free-to-play, and that's great, but Revoker is not. As well as, like, I would say at least 2 of the best mechs are not. Revokers killed Guardian, basically. Yeah, as soon as mods came out and Revokers became meta, Guardian became worthless. Because what's a Guardian gonna do against Revokers? They don't have a reload time. What do you think of the new tournament system? I like it in concept. The idea of a limited number of battles is really nice, because that means that whoever does better ends up winning, not just whoever no-lifes it for longer, right? As well as the fact that if there's a limited number of battles you can play per day, that means you can play whenever you want. They can play a couple matches before they go to work, play a couple matches before they go to bed, and they don't have to worry about, uh-oh, if I enter the tournament now, then other people are going to also join, and then just grind throughout the entire day. And then by the time I get back to it, it'll just be like, I'll just have no chance. And some people are stuck like that. They have 0 chance of ever winning a tournament strictly because they have time zones that are really crappy for it. So, a limited number of battles, I think that's good. It's a good thing.
That's fine. But now with the Gear Hub, the progression system's changed. It's so much more expensive, and I can't say that anymore. Like, I can't say that anymore. So I think that is a obvious issue that needs to be addressed, and it's simply because you can't get enough A coins from anything. There's far too few ways to get them. And that is a perfect transition into point number 2, which would be the tournament mode, which is terrible. It's all
the tournament mode. So they're still experimenting with the tournament mode. I'm actually surprised that it took them this long, to be completely honest with you, considering how dog water it is. It is the most boring, least entertaining, most frustrating, and least rewarding system that I think I could have ever come up with if I tried to hit all of those marks, right? Like, take tanking out of it. I know everybody's going to mention SP droppers. Everyone's going to mention bad matchmaking. The bad matchmaking, yes, very relevant right now. But, you know, let's make the wild assumption that at some point they fix the matchmaking. And there's no SP droppers, everything is fair. Even still, it's a crappy game mode. Because you're playing the same map for forever. And this is also another reason why the limited number of battles is a nice thing, because that means that you don't have to play 300 times on the same map. But, you know, let's assume that that's not going to stay. I know it's not going... It's going to go back to normal at some point. And they may or may not make the limited game modes permanent eventually, but I think it's just a test. It'll go back to normal after this, for a while anyway. So I think it's worth continuing to address tournament as if this current test isn't happening. But yeah, essentially, like, super boring. You play the same map, like, a bunch of times. the time zone thing, like I mentioned before, certain people in bad time zones just can't effectively compete in it just because of the way that the thing works. It's based on mostly how much free time you have and not based on like how good you actually do. As well as like just generally like tournament, in my opinion, tournament is where it is basically like those are the A coins that people should just be getting normally, right? So you're essentially forcing people to compete for what should be their daily or weekly A coins. Because like the rewards aren't even that good for tournament. Freaking what is it? 1,200 A coins for Grandmaster. You know how long you have to spend grinding Grandmaster? For 1,200 A coins, you could buy 2 legendary implants with that. two really cheap legendary implants with that. Like that's literally nothing. You'd have to do that like 4 times just to buy an epic mech, which is just like it's not gonna happen. And yeah, no, that's garbage. It's garbage, and I've hated it. I've always hated it. I'll continue to hate it. I think that they should make the tournament mode more like an actual tournament, make it very competitive. But don't make it as, but you know, give people their A coins somewhere else. Like actually give people a way to get A coins without having to play tournament mode. It's stupid.
Awful. I don't know if anyone actually plays that out of enjoyment. Some people might play free-for-all because they enjoy free-for-all, but like, come on. If you could play free-for-all normally, you would probably do that and get multiple different maps rather than playing the same map for like 30 times in a row. It's horribly boring. I don't think anyone actually enjoys it. It's full of tankers, and again, because of the previous A-coin problem that I mentioned, it means that tournament being the only way to reasonably get large amounts of A-coins, like pretty much period.
Which is still true. They've added, what is it, like playoffs or whatever, where you can get A-coins from the playoffs. But the ways to earn points in those playoffs is by either spending money, spending a lot of A-coins or a lot of credits, or just by no-lifing the game for several weeks. So again, there's like, you know, there's no reason, even if it's not that many A-coins. This is sort of thing like, it's just for like 1,000 A-coins, right? The playoffs with just 1,000 A-coins. Again, it's also forcing, you know, people are still competing with each other, so it's not like everybody has a chance to get it. No. If everybody tries harder, that just means the 3 people who tried the hardest are actually going to get it. There's no amount of like adequate effort. And I think that there should be. I think each person should be able to get the same amount so long as they put in adequate amount of effort. Like if you're not playing the game at all, if you're playing like 1 match a day, obviously you're not going to get much, and you shouldn't get much. But you know, if you're playing regularly, then yeah, I think you should.
That means that any issues, any loopholes, any exploits in tournament are magnified by like 100 times. And you see that with tanking. People who are tanking, it's now the only way to win. Everybody's tanking. Everybody's doing it. Because
still true. And it definitely hasn't gotten better, even though they've tried, I don't even know how many methods at this point. They've done a lot of soft updates to change the matchmaking. All of these different things. You guys like wouldn't know about a lot of them because they don't like announce it or anything. But they release a lot of updates to try to tweak matchmaking just a little bit to try to keep people from tanking. But the main issue is just I think the main issue is that they're trying to work with their current SP system, and their current SP system is crap. So it's just not going to work unless they like completely rework that, which maybe they will. Maybe they will next year. I don't know. Hopefully they do. But what's to say? We will find out. I mean, it's been plenty long enough, and they still haven't like really improved it. I will say though, there's two things I do want to mention. So first off, there was a random article that I saw that was basically like an interview with one of the developers of Mech Arena. And they did mention that in 2025, they want to focus on like player retention, new game modes, clan features, quality of life stuff, all of this all these nice things, just like for general game health. I think they focused a lot on adding new stuff in 2024 this year, which I actually kind of get it, because like when you really think about it, there's not very many mechs and there's not very many weapons. Compare Mech Arena to War Robots. There are so many more options for you to do stuff in War Robots. Even if a mech or a weapon's not particularly good, there's so many different ways that you can combine them, and there's so many different things that they can do, that you can make actually really interesting and fun and pretty good builds just by using different stuff. But you can't really do that in Mech Arena just because there's really not enough usable variety. And so I think to some extent that's why they've been adding just a bunch of legendary mechs and weapons, and they did that mostly throughout this year. And it is somewhat justified, but I really hope that they freaking tone it down, like obvious, keep releasing new stuff. Like obviously they have to. That's how they get the bulk of their revenue anyway. But like, don't stop releasing like 2 things a month is what I'm saying.
Because that they see that as the only way to win anything, and it has become the truth. I mean, it wasn't before, but now it kind of is. If you want to win a tournament, you got to tank. I'm going to call you a no-skill loser, but
also still true.
That is the truth, unfortunately.
If I find someone who's tanking on my friends list, I'll unfriend them most of the time, unless it's too much of a hassle if they're on like Facebook or something. Eclipse is generally better than Surge, yeah. I think most people would agree with that. Just created an alt free-to-play account, and the tournament was decent at 1.2k. My main account face is 10 to 14k. It's interesting, yeah. I honestly, I think some of it's just dumb luck, because I also played on my, my main account, obviously, because that's really the only one that I have. Like 12, 13k SP. I played tournament with that, and I ran into everybody that I ran into was like between 10 and 15,000 SP. So everybody was within a reasonable margin of my power, and again, it's probably just dumb luck, but yeah, that was my experience with it, and I was like, oh, okay. I mean, the bots being really weak is just weird, but that to me that's unnecessary. But yeah, it's just another another thing to add to the pile, right? But yeah, no, my first impression was like, oh, okay, they got the player matchmaking down, but apparently not. Apparently not. Zapping, hello. How are you? I'm 30 minutes older than I have to be. I'll say that.
And there's not a whole lot I can say against that. So point number 3 is a little bit different. It's on the topic of item imbalances. Now, I want to first point out that
For like tanking, bro.
I have believed, and I continue to believe, that they have done a great job balancing their mechs in this game.
This is still true. I hate dash mechs with a passion. There are some mechs that are just really freaking broken, and mods have made that have kind of accentuated some gaps, which is sort of unfortunate. It's closed other gaps, like it's accentuated some and closed others, but unfortunately, as it has has accentuated the gap between like legendary scout mechs and everything else. The legendary scout mechs are all like stupidly OP. But even with that said, right? Like I call them stupidly OP, but they're OP by like not by comparison, really. Like you could still reasonably kill a Surge with a highly modded Surge with a highly modded Gatecrasher or something. Like if both people know what they're doing, then you stand a somewhat decent chance as the Gatecrasher, which is the obviously worst mech, if you didn't know. But so like when I say something's like really OP, it's like it in terms of mechs, I mean that means it's above average. It's definitely above the curve. It's above everything else. But it's not like so far above that it's crazy. That's not the case with weapons though. With weapons, there are some that are just absolutely way out there, and then others that are just absolutely crap. And that's the weapons are arguably the more important things, right? Like, basically any mech can work so long as it has a OP weapon on it. So, like, the weapons, if I was to choose between unbalanced weapons and unbalanced mechs, I would actually probably choose unbalanced mechs. Because, it's... Well, for one thing, you can only use one of each mech in your hangar. And for another thing... I just think it's less of an issue. You should only be able to shoot through one layer of the dome shield, not stand outside it and shoot through both sides. Well, I mean, if you really hate Aegis, then, like, don't worry, because high SP players don't use it anymore. It's not that good. As soon as you start facing a lot of dash mechs that can get inside your dome really easily, then the Aegises will cease to be.
Fantastic job. Every mech has its pros and cons. It has counters. It has lots of different things going for it. Several things going against it. There's a lot of different things that you can use. Now, some perform really bad, and I wish that they would buff some, and I wish that they would nerf some. But ultimately, I'm not even going to touch on the topic of mech imbalance. I'm simply going to talk about weapons.
Compared to weapons, the mech imbalance is not an
imbalance. The meta in weapons is basically just camper weapons and anti-camper weapons. There's no in between. Like,
this was uploaded January. This was during disc launcher and sniper meta, right? So it was basically just everyone's doing their best to camp with the sniper weapons, and then the other people would use disc launchers to kill the people who are camping with the sniper weapons. And those are basically the only two things that you saw. Now, I don't think I mentioned in this video, but I've mentioned it before, and I mentioned it recently, that there's specific kinds of meta, like weapon metas that you want, specific ones that generally perform better, and specific ones that generally perform worse. The average player will probably tell you that they like to be aggressive, they like to use close quarters weapons. Well, I mean, first off, they generally tend to do better. And it's really easy to use them, especially if you have some lame dash mech. but the bulk of players do, you know, they get, you know, even if that wasn't the case, I should say, they do get a bit of a rush from being aggressive and using close quarters type stuff. And it's also, close quarters meta is also the most risky, right? It offers the most reward while also putting you in the most danger. And I think that is the ideal meta to have. What we used to have was a long range and radius meta. A radius meta is the stupidest thing you could ever think about. Dying from behind, like, you don't even see who, you can't see who's shooting you. You're just dying because someone on the other side of the map is like slapping a disc launcher thing 20 meters away from you and the radius is killing you. So like, that's I always thought that was stupid, and I will continue to think that radius weapons are a bit excessive. With mods they might not be that bad, to be honest, but who's to say. Anyway, my point is, there are certain kinds of weapons that just, not only do people prefer using them and they just like the way that they feel, and so making those the meta will typically make people happier, because that's the sort of thing they'll gravitate toward anyway. So like, you know, you're making what they like to use also the thing that's effective to use, so that's good. But also just innately, like I said before, innately, it offers the most reward while also putting you in the most danger, right? The most meta things should be the things that include the most risk. And that's what close quarters weapons do. The current close quarters meta being Revoker is egregious, and I hate it, but you know, in general, if they were to replace Revoker with some other, if it was like Howler that was meta for whatever reason, like if it had 100% shield pierce and you could kill people without even having to damage their mods, and that was like just the meta weapon, the go-to meta weapon, I'd be okay with that, because it has a fixed ammo cap, has a fixed reload time, right? Like there's clear downsides to it, as opposed to Revoker, which is literally just hold down the fire button and do whatever, which is what I've seen so many people doing that. Like, they just continue firing while they're moving around the map. It's like, what are you doing, bro? But, whatever, yeah. Revokers, because of their mechanics, I don't think those would ever be the ideal meta weapon. So they would have to, like, if they were gonna make a meta that, in my opinion, was like perfectly ideal, they'd have to nerf Revoker to where it's not meta anymore. You know, will that happen? Probably not, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, reducing the DPS is just the obvious way of nerfing it, because the whole thing that makes it so good is that it has disgustingly high DPS. You couldn't do anything to it after that without fundamentally ruining what it's supposed to be, right? You couldn't give it a reload time, because that's the whole point, is that it doesn't have a reload time. You couldn't, like, take away the secondary damage that it deals when it pulls back, because that's, you know, again, that's part of, like, the whole idea of the weapon, is that it hits you twice. It's like, there's not a whole lot you could do to it besides just generally nerfing the DPS. Nerfing the range doesn't matter. Why would you nerf the range? Most people use it point blank. In fact, it's most effective point blank. By nerfing the range, you would affect exactly like you would affect the 4 players who use it with the range implant, and that's basically it. Projectile speed nerf, range nerf would both do about the same thing, which is little to nothing. Anyway, like, there's no place for assault, there's no place for beams, there's no place for missiles. Well, I mean, storm. So yeah, missiles, pretty good. I mean, by pretty good, I mean they're really good. Missiles have been very popular for a very long time. Assault weapons have become much more popular with mods. Yes, Batman, you are one of the 4 people who uses the range implant. Congratulations. Assault type weapons have become significantly better. Actually, Overdriver is it is an actual like consideration for a lot of like max players in terms of like competitive matches. I've seen multiple Overdriver builds, so it's a good weapon. It's a good weapon. Minigun's also pretty popular. So that's good. They've really helped the sustained fire weapons, the assault ones. In terms of the beams, the only reason beams don't work is because there's no decent beam weapon. Freaking particle beam is garbage because it relies on burst shot, and the reason that snipers are garbage is because they also rely on burst shot. So that's, yeah, particle beam's not going to work. Graviton beam has to get through all of your shield layers and then all of your galvanic hull before it'll even think about damaging your HP, so that's not going to happen. And yeah, like apart from those 2 weapons, there's really no decent beam weapons. Freaking stasis beam is like the worst thing you could think of. So yeah, in terms of beams, it's just a sad, unfortunate fact that, you know, that the category just doesn't have any good options. Beams could be useful if they made a decent one. Unfortunately, though, they kind of flipped it, right? So it used to be that snipers were all the rage, and now like they're basically unusable. And that was flipped on its head in a matter of like a couple weeks, which is kind of wild. Like, I don't mind the idea of the idea of mods is fine. I actually like it. The multi-layered mods are also okay. Actually, I'm okay with that. I think they made them have way too many layers for one thing, but like also like, okay, you could just, if you're gonna make basically if every single enemy is going to have a shield of some kind, you know, pretty much guaranteed, because in the form of mods, right? Unless they add new kinds of mods that aren't shields, which might happen, but it's probably going to take a long time. Yeah, if every enemy is guaranteed to have a shield, then what exactly is the point of having a single hit high damage weapon? They're just innately garbage, right? So most of the ones that they have, most of the high damage single hit weapons, I think, should be given shield pierce, specifically snipers, because that's kind of what they exist for, is to have a high single hit damage output. So like I think most, if not all, snipers should have some level of shield piercing. They could also reduce the layers to the multi-layered mods. Like, it's maximum perimeter multi-layer maxes at 9 layers, I believe. It should be no more than like 5, honestly. Are you gonna do a live stream where you 1v1 subscribers? No, I don't think so. Ask Platinum. He's more likely to do that. I have not done a 1v1 in probably multiple years at this point, and I don't plan to. Tetra Rifle looks so fun. Even Tetra Rifle is actually not even... Tetra Rifle still doesn't have enough shield pierce. It needs more. It really does. It's still kind of crap. Nobody uses it. Even on Orion. You slap it on Orion. Use it on Orion with the shield pierce implant. It's still not even that good, because it gets completely absorbed by Galvanic, but that's a different story, I suppose. But anyway, yeah, that's that. Rack has made missiles slightly more popular, but even still, typically a camper or anti-camper weapon would outperform that. And by camper, I mean like Helix Rack snipers, or
like rocket mortar, right? And then anti-camper.
Also, I'm not really sure what I was talking about right here. I'm pretty sure at the time of recording this, missile rack was still pretty meta. So like, I don't know why I was saying like it's only storm rack that's even good. You know, missile rack is also really good. Like people still used it. It could still one-shot things. That's all you really needed was a thing that could like kill an enemy in one mag.
Would just be also rocket mortar, but also disc launcher and anything with like large radius, something like that. And so close range weapons have fallen off a lot. You can make them work. There's a lot of things that you can make work, right? But ultimately, if you see like a top meta hanger, it's got 2 EM rifle builds and 3 disc launcher builds, and that's it. And that's just the way to do it. Or maybe they want to mix it up and they go with like 2 AM rifle builds or railgun build and then 2 disc launcher builds. But it's either sniper or disc launcher. That's what I'm saying. And it boils down to just like the snipers being the big heavy hitters, the main weapons, the big problem, and then just the one weapon being the anti-sniper weapon, which is disc launcher. And both of those are just, you can't nerf one without the other one fully dominating. So what?
And this is true. This would be true. And this is the same situation. Actually, so what they did was they actually nerfed both at the same time, essentially. They nerfed disc launchers and snipers by releasing mods shortly after. When they nerfed disc launchers, Storm Rack became a bit more popular. But yeah, for the most part, it was just like it was just more snipers. But it's the same situation here, is what I'm trying to say. The same situation here with the Storm Rack and Revoker meta, right? If you nerf Revokers, then what you're left with is everybody's now safe to camp in the back with a really high radius, high burst damage weapon. And they absolutely will do that. What are you going to do? There's nothing you can do about it. You could rush them with like an Ember Gun whatever thing, but you'll kill them before they kill you. Even if it's a Surge and they EMP you, it's going to take them a long time to shoot through your mod layers or whatever. So like if they nerf Revoker, then Storm Rack just fully dominates, and you'd be left with yeah, some pretty big issues potentially. Now, Storm Rack is not as OP as Disc Launcher was, I don't think. Especially since a lot of things are actually tanky enough to be able to withstand multiple mags from Storm Rack. So, yeah, to that extent, anyway. I think that's you know, if they did nerf Revoker a little bit, then I think everything would actually be a bit better, not worse. But you know what I'm saying is, like, you know, they do have to be careful, right? They can't just like, oh, this thing's OP, we have to nerf it, because otherwise you can create some very interesting things. And also, like, some things are more OP than others at different stages of the game. Radius back damage should be removed. I've always hated radius back damage. With mods and Galvanical, though, I don't really care. There's kind of no reason to get Galvanical without radius weapons existing. I think every radius weapon should have a radius damage fall off, though. You know how Disc Launcher does? That should apply to every radius weapon. And that was my initial thing. I had given them the idea, on multiple occasions, I'm sure I've said it, that the ideal way to nerf Disc Launcher would be to give it a radius damage fall off. So it still has, you know, good damage, but you can't just spam it at a wall and kill people by association, right? Because it would do very little damage with that such a large radius. It would do very little damage to the people who are further away. And that, in my opinion, that should be that should be what they do to all radius weapons. What needs to happen is that they really need to nerf the damage
from Railgun, right? They need to force players to use a larger number of shots to get kills.
Which they did. They had
Railgun because it has multiple shots. EM rifle is a different issue. Personally, I think that it needs to do significantly less damage up close.
Which they didn't do.
Should it one-shot things? Honestly, I think yes, because if it's only got one shot and other things are already doing stupid amounts of damage, you may as well allow it to one-shot, otherwise it's kind of useless. So, in my mind, the best way to balance that would either be, well, I would say to increase the reload time, number one, to like 6 seconds at least. I think currently it's 5.5, so maybe 6.5, increase it by like a second. But then also reduce the damage that it deals point blank. I think currently it deals like 60-70% of its full damage at point blank range, which is terrible.
You could one-shot people with
how are you one-shotting something at point
it was a regular occurrence
with a sniper that's supposed to deal significantly less damage? Like, it's not supposed to be a brawler weapon. Like, how is EM rifle a better close range weapon than my close range weapons are, right? That doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't be like that. But
this was before Ember Gun existed also.
And so that needs to happen. And then, of course, so like Disc Launcher is its own
like
demon. Personally, I think that the damage is really the only thing that needs to be reduced. Maybe increase the reload time as well. But the thing is like when you look at the stats, it looks fine. The damage per shot is low. But the entire thing breaks and the entire thing goes to crap as soon as you factor in the back damage multiplier, which is almost guaranteed with something with a radius the size of the sun. And so,
yeah, now I'm talking about
if you're not going to reduce the radius, which you could, but I think there should be a weapon with a large radius, and it may as well be Disc Launcher.
Also true.
It shouldn't be hitting like an actual truck. Like it
does a specific job. Large radius weapons do a specific job that other weapons can't. So I think the point which shouldn't be able to like two-shot people with it.
The anti-camper weapons, just in general, would be to deal damage where other weapons can't, to draw enemies out, to force them to move into the fire of the high DPS weapons, right? Not for the anti-campers themselves to be the high DPS weapons. That's just that is crossing the line, and that's creating a world and a game where the assault weapons just don't have value.
This was back when the ideal build for Surge was Disc Launcher. And if you don't understand how stupid that is just for me saying it, then I'm not even going to bother explaining it.
Which, there's a lot of other reasons assault weapons don't have value, and that's because burst damage is like the only way to get good results, especially against players who actually know what they're doing.
It's still kind of true. I mean, burst weapons just do way better than sustained weapons do, and that'll always be true, though. I mean, why deal damage slowly when you could do it faster? You take less damage if you deal your damage faster, right? So there's kind of no reason to want to... There's no reason to want to use a sustained fire weapon unless it does something that burst weapons can't, right? Which, sometimes that's the case, sometimes that's the case. Minigun and Overdriver actually has some pretty decent effective range. I think if they made a beam that wasn't garbage, it could actually be really nice because it, would have probably like 100 meters effective range, which is that's pretty good. And yeah, but I mean, like in general, obviously fast damage is always going to be better than slow damage.
Personally, I think assault weapons just need to have their damage like really mega buffed, like by a lot, because it's the only thing I can really think of, right? Because you don't really want to make them.
I don't think Overdriver existed when I made this. I think like the bulk of like what I was working off of was like Carbine, maybe Viper. Viper has the rockets, which are super inconsistent, and Carbine's DPS is just sad. Carbine's DPS is just very sad.
Burst damage weapons, they're assault weapons, right? It's supposed to be like a, you know, over damage over time. You have lots of damage, but it takes you a little while to do it. But you should at least, like, actually get that damage. I'm pretty sure Graviton Beam has better damage, better range, better mag size, better reload time. It has Graviton Beam's pretty much better in every conceivable way than Carbine, and that
before mods, yeah. Actually, Graviton Beam was kind of meta for a little while, just because like it has really high DPS. It was better than Minigun for a while because, like, you know, it had basically the same DPS but way better effective range, and also like Eclipse wasn't really a problem because Eclipse would die really quickly to like any kind of disc launch or anything. Prisma Beam from Armor Attack should be in Mech Arena. Oh, that Burst Beam. I never actually got to use it. That's not true. I did get to use it in the beta version, or not the beta, the alpha version. Sorry, I never really played the beta. It's so sad to hear that it's not going to be available on Steam until like late next year. I was like, bro, I thought it was coming out. I thought it was going to be this year. But instead it's like, oh, there's all these updates for mobile. Like, brother, I'm not playing it on mobile. Don't even get me started with an emulator. Like, I'm not dealing with that crap. But you know, I can download the beta like PC versions, but like, is my account even going to be saved? My account progress going to be saved? If I swapped from that to Steam, I kind of doubt it. He also says Viper is in March. I see you. No, I see you. Like, he's got like the Mech Arena database up, and he's just cross-referencing everything.
It's like, why is that, right? I don't understand. So, obviously, there should be some type of buff to assault weapons just in general.
Which there
Going
was.
on to
they
the next
added
point,
multilayer mods, which made them
that
much
would
better.
be the speed meta. Now, everyone
Speed
who's
meta.
running around in their like hangar full of like 3 to 4 scouts probably is going to want to disagree with this, but you can't legitimately like consider what I'm saying and then actually discard it as being like, well, no, I'm just really good with scouts. Like, I'm sorry, but fast things are objectively easier to handle. If you put yourself in a bad spot and someone starts coming after you, guess what? You can just move to the other side of the map in a matter of seconds,
Especially
as
Dash
opposed
Mechs.
to actually living with the consequences of your bad positioning skills.
Dash Mechs
honestly,
have like
is what it comes
the
down to.
least skill
And
requirement in the entire
the mechs
map.
that are slow suffer a lot, and the mechs that are fast are just.
I will say they did improve on this quite a lot. There's actually quite a few slower things, quite a few actually quite a few tanks that they added that do really, really well. And I'm not even talking about the tanks that give you a speed boost, like what's it called, Deathwalker and Vortex. I'm talking like Blockhorn as well, which is a very slow mech. You can't even move when you're using your ability. Aegis is also really good. So like, you know, they definitely improved on making slow mechs like actually have better good abilities, because yeah, the abilities that they give to these freaking dash mechs and other scouts is absurd. They already have really, you know, really good firepower, as well as like usually low HP, but they get the most benefit from mods, so like it kind of balances out, right?
Absurd, but part of it is the fact.
He says, I have a good memory when it comes to video games, so I remember when weapons and mechs come out. Fair enough. I don't know how long you've been playing this, but I've been playing it for like 4 years, and so a lot of things just kind of blur together for me. I suppose I have a better memory when it comes to stats and stuff, and I don't really pay much attention to like release dates and things. But fair enough, fair enough. What would you think if they added a saw launcher? What would it do? It's kind of a rhetorical question because I'm not going to be spending like 30 minutes talking about a theoretical weapon that'll probably never exist.
That most scouts, most high-speed mechs have very, very high energy capacity. 24 energy can, like, you can do so much damage with that, especially with the weapon imbalance that I mentioned previously.
I still think this is true.
Double EM.
I think most scouts having, all decent scouts have 24 maximum energy. Some of them have 32. Well, I say some of them, but there's only Mimicker that's actually a scout. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, like the 24 energy thing. I don't know. I think they've gone a bit like too far with the energy capacities that they have. You know, everything like they've specifically said, so like 16 energy light mechs that's like a low tier thing, right? That's a thing that they don't want higher tier mechs to have. That's why they made Cheetah. That's why they made Cheetah have 24. They buffed it to 24 energy rather than 16. So now the only light mechs that exist are either rare or lower. And that leaves only 2 energy capacities for epic and legendary mechs, which is like, okay, but how are you going to reasonably balance mech abilities if there's only 2 energy capacities to work with, right? It would be a lot better if certain mech abilities that are clearly just a bit stronger were on mechs that just had slightly less energy capacity, right, to balance it out. You know, they try to balance it out by giving mechs lower HP most of the time. Most of the time they balance it out with HP and not with speed. It's almost always they give it good ability, good this, that, the other thing, and then they just like absolutely tank the HP into the ground. But this isn't even an issue really, because when you have a low HP pool, then that basically guarantees that you're going to be in the highest mod stat group, which essentially just, you know, counteracts that downside that your mech has. So a lot of these, and it's part of the reason like Surge and Eclipse do so well, is because they have better mods than they honestly should.
12 Eclipse, not only can you cross the map in a couple seconds, you can also one-shot anything that you come across at point-blank range. And although they've done a nice job balancing a lot of mechs in a lot of different situations, specifically for Control Point Clash, which I'm assuming is the main mode for most players. It's main mode for me. It's the one that I have the most fun with. It's the one that I play the most. It's absolutely necessary that you have multiple fast mechs. Now, obviously, that's kind of a given, right? You should be encouraged to build a balanced hangar, right? If you had a bunch of scouts, then you should be encouraged to be putting in a tank to absorb some damage. You should be encouraged to put in like a DPS attacker mech or a support, something like that. Supports are kind of their own thing, but
you could still have a really good hangar with 4 scouts.
And they do largely encourage that, but
you could kind of counter that where by having multiple tanks.
Scouts are just so all-powerful. It gets to a point where, especially in CPC, if you had a full hangar of scouts, you're golden. Like, you're fine. You're like,
everything is except for like
easily. There's almost no drawback to it.
And that's only if everybody's like hanging in the back.
More HP, more tanks entering the meta all the time.
Dash makes it. Dash is such a cheat code,
mostly for like 5v5 and 2v2. Like, if you just run around and capture beacons, what are they even gonna do?
they can't really do anything about it, because those mechs, even though they're very meta, they have inherent balances, which is like their speed, right? They're not fast, they're not able to keep up. But you couldn't run 5 slow mechs, right? You could run 5 fast mechs and you'll do fine. Maybe you'll lose a couple matches, but you couldn't run 5 slow mechs. You'd lose instantly. Like, there'd be no chance for you. And so
it's still kind of true, though.
I
I think
it's clear speed meta, which is probably
a lot of there's more slow mechs
in most games, it's an annoyance for myself personally. I'm not sure how
I
anyone
find
else
scouts
feels about it. Let me know if you
stupid
think
and
the
lame.
speed meta
Though
is
I fully understand that, like, in a
worse
control
than I'm talking
point,
about, or if you agree with me, or if you think that maybe it's not as bad as I'm making it out to be.
Is necessary.
I do like
in a game mode where, you know, grabbing beacons, you know, being able to cross the map in a specific way, where that's very necessary thing to do. Yeah, I fully understand, especially if you're playing like solo with a bunch of bots, because your bots are not going to do anything. You have to go back and grab your freaking home beacon that got snagged by an enemy bot, something like that. Especially if you're playing with bots, then you know, you're toast. You're toast if you have slow mechs. Not so much in like an actual team setting, like my clan, like I don't own it, but like the clan I belong to, recently played a competitive tournament. We didn't have a whole ton of dash mechs. I mean, we each had at least one, I think, but like we weren't relying on them for the sake of speed, really. So, yeah. I think that is something that like I didn't really appreciate when I said it. I figured it was more so, like at the time, right? At the time that I first uploaded this, which again was in January, I was not particularly experienced in competitive gameplay. First off, I had some experience. I was playing, you know, I was a decent player. I think this was after Community Cup, the Mech Arena Community Cup Season 1. I believe that ended around December. And or at least, yeah, I'd either end, yeah, I ended around that area. What was I saying? I mean, compared to what I know now, what I knew back then about competitive gameplay and like actual strategy, team strategy and stuff, I was stupid. But damn. The video is louder than me. Well, I can turn it down slightly. Well, this is the first time I'm hearing about it. Anyway, that's what I was saying. Actually, I might turn it down slightly more. I think you should be able to hear it fine. But, I was saying, it's like, a few things that I didn't really appreciate was, like, first off, I think I said that missile weapons weren't particularly good, which definitely wasn't true. Missile Rack was meta at the time, I'm pretty sure. But that wasn't really a main point of mine, so it doesn't really matter. As well as, like, the scouts thing, actually I think it was pretty legit. If you were to use, like, a full hanger of scouts, even competitively, in like, January, right? If you were to use a full hanger of scouts, you'd do great. You'd do much better than you would nowadays, right? So they balanced it out a bit more than they did. But I think, in general, I just didn't have... I didn't have quite the kind of team experience to be able to use slower stuff that I do now, but even still.
like a lot of mechs that tend to be slower. So maybe it is just personal opinion here. So the last big issue is going to be the AI behavior, the bots. Not everything about the AI is terrible and awful. However, over the past year or so, bots have received lots of updates to their behavior, to the items that they have, and all that sort of thing. And so now, instead of, really weak bots with incredibly terrible, mech and weapon pairings like we used to get before the Crate update, now we get significantly stronger bots, right? And you'll have ones that are actually fully maxed out. That's what I fight. Now, the first big issue I would say is that bots constantly have access to things that you don't have access to in the tier that you're in, which is ridiculous.
This is mostly for mid-game players, especially for free-to-play players. They're constantly getting freaking dogged on by bots who have stuff that you don't even, you couldn't even hope to have. You're in tier 5 and the bots are coming at you with a freaking seeker that's in tier 9. What the hell? That shouldn't exist. Chusif is complaining a lot, something about money. Okay. Revoker Chungus, no. But anyway. What was I saying? Yeah, the bots, the fact that them being generally stronger than you is not a problem because they're dumber than you, right? And so that is their way of kind of balancing it out, is giving them somewhat stronger stuff. But you can give them stronger stuff without giving them really ridiculous, super OP things that the person couldn't even hope to have unless they bought an offer for it, I guess. I don't know. Personally, I think it would be most beneficial, if you're in tier 5, it would be most beneficial that the bots use stuff from mostly tier 6. They have stronger, if you want them to have an extra weapon or mech rank, that's fine too. Doesn't really matter. You could make them stronger without necessarily giving them legendary stuff. And that would, first off, keep people from being what the hell is this? This is something from tier 9. How am I supposed to fight that? And they'll think that, they'll get a really bad impression of the game. So it'll make that slightly better. But also it encourages people to buy the stuff in the next tier, right? It would help Plarium as well, because the bots are beating up on you. Error. Bro, I saw a slow deterioration of this man over time. I'm not gonna time him out because he hasn't said anything really weird, but he was starting off fine and then he's just slowly started to he's melting or something. I don't know. But anyway. Anyway, yeah, even from a game selling you stuff standpoint, to me it makes much more sense to be here's the stuff that's in the next tier, and they're beating you up with it. So it encourages you to maybe buy more A coins or do whatever, keep playing the game so you can get the stuff that's in the next tier. And it just seems like a reasonable selling point to me, rather than it's just he has a seeker and there's just no chance that you get it unless you fork over cash, right? that to me, that's where it's going too crazy. Plarium rarely nerfs anything. Yes, you're correct. In the 4 years that I've been playing, they have nerfed a grand total of 3 things.
they nerfed Disk Launcher and Arc Torrent at the same time. Neither of them were really necessary because they added mods which made Disk Launcher kind of pointless anyway. So I don't really know why they did that. And they also nerfed EM Rifle, but only slightly, and it was still the top weapon after they nerfed it. I don't know why people were upset about it, really. I think this should just be different prices for upgrading depending on rarity. Like, you can't pay so much for a tier 3 mech. I agree with this. What's actually crazy to me is that if you were to buy and max a Juggernaut, it would ultimately cost you more than if you were to buy and max a Bastion. I'm pretty sure. Like, if you were to convert the credits into A-coins in a 100-to-1 conversion rate, which is technically the game's conversion rate, it's bad. It's not accurate to the game's actual economy, but that is technically their conversion rate. And I'm pretty sure the Juggernaut ends up costing more. If it doesn't cost more, it's incredibly close, which it shouldn't be, because it's like a max Juggernaut is literally nothing compared to a maxed Bastion. It's literally nothing. But yeah, no, I fully agree. Rank up costs should be much cheaper. Upgrade costs should be much cheaper. The purchase costs are already cheaper, but they're only cheaper because of the rank. I said this before, not that long ago. I'll say it again. If you take the cost of, let's say you take an epic mech, right? Starts at rank 4. The amount of credits and A-coins that it would cost you, the overall, like if you were to use A-coins to buy credits, essentially, the amount of total A-coins it would take to get all the credits and the rank up. I think this is not including the blueprints. This is assuming you had all the blueprints, but the amount of A-coins it would take you to get all those credits and rank it up is about the amount that they charge you for a rank 5 legendary mech. So by comparison, legendary mechs are actually cheaper, because buying a rank 4 legendary mech costs the exact same as buying a rank 4 epic mech. But the legendary is just better. EM Rifle's got a well-deserved nerf. Auto-aim with a 75% chance will double damage. The fact that people legitimately, unironically complained about that is wild to me. There were people who, absolutely, like, no doubt in their mind, thought that this was the worst update that ever happened, and they were outraged. And I'm like, brother, it is still a top weapon. It's the top weapon. All they did was make it not absolutely broken. But hey, nah, man. Wild. So basically they'll launch a new weapon, advertise it as literally OP. I mean, they advertise everything as literally OP. But, yeah, I mean, you don't go by Mech Arena's advertising. And then because they have to launch another weapon, they nerf the previous one to introduce something that'll make it useless. Give me an example of them nerfing a weapon before making something to specifically replace it. Stormrack was not made to replace Disc Launcher. It doesn't happen. There were, like,
They've, I mean, once again, they've only nerfed 3 things. One of them, the nerf didn't even do anything. It still ended up being an OP weapon. They've nerfed all of 2 things, both of which the Arc Torrent. They nerfed Arc Torrent and Disc Launcher. Arc Torrent wasn't even good late game when they nerfed it. I don't even know why they nerfed it, because when they did, it wasn't even a good weapon. I would laugh at anyone who used Arc Torrent late game. And Disc Launcher was gonna die to mods regardless. So you just don't, you don't really have any examples of them doing it. You might be able to think that it's, and maybe you think that it's something they would do, but that's entirely speculation. It's entirely based on just like what you think about them. It's not based on any type of like historical evidence. He's talking about war robots for some reason? Okay, if he's talking about war robots, then yes, that's absolutely what war robots does, and that's why I left that game. I literally could not with that nerf buff cycle. There's a certain power creep. There is definitely a certain power creep, yeah. Well, especially if they never release... There's gonna be an inherent power creep if they never release new things to free-to-play people. It took them nearly 2 years to release Eclipse. And so that's not necessarily because of the item power creep, but it's because they can't freaking, like, they can't get it together and actually release stuff. Even the stuff that they're releasing right now, like a repeater that they released recently, it's been a year since that was added. Stormrack was added in December of last year. And I find that unacceptable. Embers, you loved them, and now mods made Embers useless. That's true, you should go back to the land without mods. Oh wait, EM rifles made my preferred weapon long arm useless. That's just what happens, bro. I much preferred long arm, but they were garbage because EM rifle existed and railgun existed. In fact, you couldn't even use Ember gun in the before mods because railgun was still a better close quarters weapon. You're saying that mods ruined all these things as if it was legitimately better before they added them. I don't think it was. I mean, it's subjective. It's entirely your opinion, but you know, in my opinion, I just don't think it was. I fully understand what you're saying, and I think the sniper thing, especially the sniper thing, is stupid. The fact that they're fully turned on their heads, and I was talking about it earlier. I don't know if you were here for that. I was saying all snipers should have some level of shield pierce. I'd say probably like 20%. Even the 10% that Tetra Rifle has isn't even that good. But, you know, yeah, I mean, that's just what happens when the meta gets turned over, which will happen sometimes. If it's the exact same for a really long time, then people get freaking bored. Yeah, Ember guns are not bad. The only time Embers will look bad is if you're fighting someone who's using Revoker. And that's just because Revoker is ridiculously OP. Like, I think Embers would be a reasonably decent go-to choice for close quarters if Revoker didn't exist. Well, I mean, I say that, but that's pretty obvious. That's like saying... it's just inherent by the fact that Ember Gun's the second best close quarters weapon. So let me rephrase that. I think competitive players would use Ember Gun if Revoker didn't exist, because I think Ember Gun is still good enough to be used. It's just that Revoker completely outshines it, so why in the world would you? You more balanced games with real players, not 1v1 and filled with AI bots, bro. I agree. I have not been enjoying any of these like 1v1 bot matches. I haven't even been recording them. The only time I record is when it's like at least 2 people, usually me and Sentry. But otherwise I'll record like full player matches, stuff like that. Revokers were always good, but they were not always meta. Ember Gun was better than Revoker before mods existed. And the reason was because Ember Gun could one-tap things. Specifically if you used it on Nomad. Revoker could not. And even if Revoker could one-tap things, it did it slower than Ember Gun could. So what you could do with an Ember Gun Nomad, especially a Nomad, just as an example, you just you dash into people, you fire at them, the overheat would make your dash deal more damage for one thing, but also just the spread, you could take out multiple people super quick with that. Revokers you couldn't. I used Revokers before mods existed. I thought they were very fun, but they always did worse than Ember Guns, always. Until mods existed, of course. Kelodozia, hello. So many sleep on nades. This is true. This is true. Nades are incredible. Very sadly, I've seen them used a bit less in like competitive matches because everybody's just using Stormwreck and Revoker. But yeah, that's sad. I have seen a rise in miniguns though, which is nice. I like minigun.
Now, obviously, sometimes that might happen, but I don't think it should be a norm necessarily for them to constantly be significantly more powerful than you. Always have like max legendary implants, like a full pilot of max legendary implants. Like, how many players actually have that? I don't even have that.
Disc Launcher and Arcs were never as annoying as Revoker and Ember Gun. The Arc Torrent, I agree. Disc Launcher, how? Like, actually, you'd rather just get, you see the place that I'm in right now? I'm in cover, you know? I'm waiting for my chance. You'd rather just get randomly one-shot because somebody decided to hit this freaking ceiling right above me? You'd rather get randomly one-shot because someone hit the ceiling with a disc launcher than to deal with someone who has to actually get close and deal with you? Close quarters meta is the ideal meta. Revoker is way out of league. It is way too OP, don't get me wrong. I will never be okay with that. But it's just I don't know. I don't want it is subjective. It is subjective, of course. But I feel like there's no chance that the majority of people would agree with you. I think there's no chance the majority of people would agree that a radius meta is less annoying. It was like the rocket mortar meta. Like, everybody hated it because it was so irritating. Everything that's newly launched is only up for buying, not credits or acorns. Okay, I believe in a certain level of paying for early access. I think that's perfectly acceptable. I think 3 months is the absolute most that a free-play player should have to wait after an in-game item release. 3 months is the absolute longest. The fact that they're in terms of the items free-to-play players are getting, we're like 11 months behind. Which is ridiculous. That's 4 times longer than what I would consider the absolute maximum that you should be making people wait. I do believe in a level of like paying for early access though. And I actually think it's somewhat helpful to some people because they can they get a bit of time to kind of see how it works and see other people getting it
before they just like jump the gun and be like, oh, I'm gonna get this new thing, and it ends up being crap or something. I love Revoker, but they're just too good. It gets to a point, yeah. Some things you have, yeah, it's like you have to accept that they're just ridiculously OP. Ruined the game by adding mods. I think mods were a good idea in concept. The idea of, well, everything was one shot before that, and I'm pretty sure that most people didn't really approve of that. When mods released, the general consensus did seem to be most people were happy with it. Now, obviously, overturning the entire meta is just in general going to make the entire meta player base hate you, because everything they now have to like change their entire hangers. They can't be competitive with the stuff that they have. So, turning that over overnight is, I don't want to say sketchy, because like it's gonna happen, right? How do you introduce a game-changing feature without that happening? It's kind of impossible, right? And you don't want to keep the same meta for like 6 years in a row. So when, the only alternative to that, the only alternative to like slowly phasing them out would be releasing multiple features that basically do the job of mods of, keeping people from being one shot. So slowly, let's say the goal was to slowly phase out snipers. How could you effectively do that unless you're releasing like tons of like game-changing updates, like smaller game-changing updates that were less, less impactful. Each one's less impactful, but it'd be over the course of like, 2+ years. It's what I'm trying to say is like meta changing things like that are going to happen. I think the biggest issue with the mods was the fact that they were and continue to be only really accessible to people who are willing to spend money. There's no good way to get mod parts. Like if you could grind mod parts, then like, okay, sure. It would take a couple months for some of these people to get decent mods, but like they just can't. There's no way to get it. You get what, 50 elite mod parts or whatever from the weekly bonus, or not the weekly bonus, the weekly task, which 50 is absurd. And there's no other way to do it. There's no other way to get them. They have not put that resource in anything else, which I know that they planned to do, and maybe they still plan to do, but I don't know why they haven't already. Anyway, my point is, not changing the meta is certainly convenient for people who currently have meta hangers. Now that's just undeniable. But I don't necessarily think that that's the ideal way to keep it, right? And you can't effectively release game-changing updates without turning over the meta to a large extent, in which case people will be upset. The big thing that they could have done to make it better, to make mods a lot more acceptable to people, were what would be to make them just more accessible. Mods are, in my opinion, very good, especially when you're just getting to 30,000 XP. You're at low HP max but high damage weapons. Yeah. Well, I think most players agreed that the one-shot meta was just no fun. The average player didn't enjoy it. I mean, yes, the meta players who spent a lot of time practicing their sniper skills and whatever, yeah, it was great for them, but like, it's not necessarily what you should be focusing on, right? Like, should you build a game for your top tier players? And
there's multiple reasons why you shouldn't do that, and there's games that have gone under for trying to do that. I'm not talking about mobile games either. I'm talking about like console games, like FPS shooter games, where they try to make things for the competitive players, but it just pushes everybody out. So it makes it really difficult to get into the game without getting absolutely destroyed by people who are just more experienced than you, and so they leave and they don't really. Yeah, there's a lot of issues. I mean, there's issues with both. Buff Sentinel, I wish. Is Helix Rank good to use? I mean, generally, yeah.
On almost any, I have that on like maybe 2 pilots, and I've been playing this game for forever. But then they also have higher tier stuff than you, right? So it's not even just the level. It's like when you're in
Pogster, I have no idea how you managed to get this problem. Like, legitimately, I do not know what the problem is. And I swear it's only you. I don't know, dude. Like, you make a YouTube alt account or something, try it. Try it there. I don't know. But there's no shot. I swear the only person that's ever, like, that's ever had to say that, and you say that every time. Yeah, but why would it think yours is, but not anybody else's? Right? There's plenty of numbers here that probably would count as there probably are legitimate phone numbers, or social security numbers, or something like that. Ishan, hello. I'm doing alright. I mean, I'm getting through this kind of slow. I started like 30 minutes later than I wanted to. It's you too. You don't know why, but you can't send it in a live chat. Okay, so what I'm gonna do. Since it's going to be open for multiple days, I will open the Mech Arena giveaways channel. Do not ping anyone or anything. I'm not going to ping anybody here because I don't want, what I really don't want is for people to just like see that it's open and then just enter there, as opposed to like actually like the bare minimum you could do is just like, show up here or leave a comment, right? So going to Discord is not something that I like. But I'll open up the giveaways channel on Discord. And that is the only other option that you have. If you're not in my server, there's a link to my server in the description. Or I think you can actually type !Discord and the bot will give it to you. Was the ID bit allowed to have a space between the ID and the number? Yes. I don't think you can put a space between the ID, between the D and the colon, though. Like whatever Chinese man did. But hey, if it works, then it works. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. I mean, I told people how to do it. So, I do get this every time, though. It's actually wild the number of hoops people will go through to try to not give me the thing that, like, that I ask for. The boss, I'm pretty sure if you break it up with spaces, it's not gonna work. Just go to Discord. But yeah, like you guys wouldn't understand. Yeah, see, like this guy. He puts the number first, and then he puts ID, and he doesn't even put the colon. You know what I'm saying? I see people all the time, they're putting, they have ID, and then they have a hyphen. The hyphen is a very common one. Who in the world uses a hyphen? I think I've seen like a freaking underscore. Like, what? People go crazy. They really desperately want to do it not the way I tell them to do it. But I mean, hey, I am not. I have stopped correcting people because most of the time they don't reply anyway. Don't include the ID part. I mean, you can if you want. It doesn't really matter. It's only going to be like 5 people who do it. So. Like, it's not a big deal if you do. But in general, yeah, don't. Taking this stream more seriously because at least some of us have to coherently talk about this game's issues. What caused you to start content creation for Mech Arena? I started making videos for War Robots before I left War Robots. I started making videos for that. They were very bad, and all of them are private, so you're not going to see them. But they are actually on this channel. This is what this channel started out as. But yeah, I enjoyed the process. I thought it was cool. And I continued that when I moved to Mech Arena a while back. Maybe English is not their first language. I mean, to be fair, I gave an example, like a legitimate example, right? It's not like I'm telling them. The only thing they have to go off of is the pinned message, which tells them, okay, here's the thing that you put, followed by your in-game ID, and then I give an example of that thing. It's pretty difficult to misunderstand it. If you understand it enough to put the ID and your ID number afterward, then I think you understand it enough to use a colon and not a freaking hyphen. Alright.
You're in tier 6, let's say, and you got like a rank 4 epic something. You got like your rank 4 Killshot, right? And then they're in
sleep, by the way.
They have stuff from tier 5. They have like, I think Brickhouse is in tier 5. They've got like a rank 4 Brickhouse. It's like, where did they get that? I don't understand. Like, this is a bot. Did the bot buy an offer from Plarium?
I'm still talking about like
them. I actually get it.
The
like
bot garbage.
Okay,
one other thing that I want to mention about bots is they changed the way that they act in a way that I actually find rather annoying. Wait, what is this guy saying? Oh. The way to put ID in YouTube Live or YouTube comments is to do I and D and colon, and don't put space between these 3 and then the ID without breaking it up. I swear I've tried to get this guy to do all kinds of different stuff, and he says that it doesn't work. I don't know. It could be a regional thing, but I swear it only happens to like 2 people, so it's like, whatever. Anyway, yeah. So what they changed the bots. Specifically, they made them less aggressive. Well, I want to say less aggressive. What they used to do is that, you know, they just move up. They just, you know, push up, grab beacons, do whatever. And they do it with everything. Doesn't matter what they had. They have friggin' EM rifles and they'd move up on you. But nowadays what they have is kind of like build recognition. So if they're using weapons that are like sniper weapons, or if they're using barrage weapons, they will hang in the back and wait until there's an enemy in sight, and then they'll start firing. The bad thing about this, though, is that this means you have potentially multiple bots on your team spinning around the back of the map doing literally nothing until an enemy happens to get back there. And by the time an enemy gets back there, that probably means that they have basically all of your beacons. So that bot's essentially useless for the entire match. And I find that incredibly frustrating. I don't like it at all. I think they should stop they should stop changing the bots, and they should just they should start optimizing the game, try to get more players in, try to keep players online for longer. I think a big part of the reason why you don't see players in matches very often is because they don't encourage people to play for very long. After your battle points are gone, then like there's no point in you playing unless you're playing tournament. There's no point in you continuing, right? Once you've completed your tasks, once your battle points are all used up, like that's potentially 30 minutes that you're online, right? It's like 5 matches. And then you're just gone because like why in the world would you bother staying? And I think they should really work on that. Personally, I think they should remove the battle point limit entirely because newsflash, even if you grinded for the entire day, getting crates constantly, I think you get like what? Maybe you'd get like maybe 2,000 crates, right? Which sounds like a lot, but guess how many Acorns you're gonna get with 2,000 silver crates? Like 800 Acorns, which is not very many. That's an entire day's work for 800 Acorns. It's not, you're not gonna be breaking the economy with that. They could absolutely remove the battle point limit, and it would not affect the economy almost at all. And by the economy, I mean the amount people are encouraged to spend on Acorns and stuff. Ruffles used to play Warbots, yeah. I mean, it was and possibly still is the most popular mech shooter game. So, you know, take that as it is. There's no big surprise. I've actually tried quite a few mech shooter games. Mobile ones, anyway. There's a few that I think are really nice, but they just have... well, there's one that's like kind of in development. It's just like excruciatingly slow development. There's another one that's Armor Attack. That one is looking really promising, and it looks pretty good. Unfortunately, the PC release isn't going to be until late next year, I think. There's another one that's mobile only, which I actually really enjoyed. The meta and power creep was kind of egregious, so ultimately I liked Mech Arena better. But it was very entertaining. I think they balanced out like their weapons and mechs pretty decently until you got to like the really high tier stuff. I enjoyed like the pacing and everything of it, but yeah, again, it was mobile only, so I didn't really play for very long. And yeah, so like, you know, I kind of have my eye on certain ones, but this is the only one that's like actually kept my attention, just because like it's the most. There's a ratio, right? There's a certain level of pay to win that you're willing to deal with, and there's a certain level of what would you say? Just general, you know, game mechanics, like how the game feels. There's a certain level of that you expect, right? And there's a balance in there somewhere. And it's different for different people. But for me, the balance is like, you know, this game is slightly a bit more pay to win than some of the other ones, but it's also, you know, it's also a bit funner. It's a bit more fun than those other ones to a degree where I think it's worth playing this one. I've seen bots just having a conversation. I'm like, what the hell? Not shooting each other, and as soon as they spot me, they'll ignore the bot that's in front of them, and I'll get targeted. Yeah, that happens a lot. Most of the time, bots will specifically target the enemy that has the least HP, which, unless you're a maxed player, is typically the real player and not the other bots, right? Because the other bots typically have like legendary stuff, high level legendary stuff. They have better stuff than you, right? So just by default, they're gonna prefer to target you.
I believe that bots should never have items that are lower rank than like what they are when you get them naturally.
This is also true. This is another point.
No.
This is another point that I brought up. That I still agree with. It should not be possible for a bot to use a freaking rank 3 Seeker. Like, did they buy it? Did they get an offer for it? Like, what the hell happened? No. The bots should only be able to use legendary stuff at rank 5 or higher. Only be able to use epic stuff at rank 4 or higher, etc., etc. I think it's absolutely absurd that they're giving bots freaking rank 2, rank 3 legendary items when you're in like tier 3 in the gear hub. Like, bruh.
I don't think you should ever see a 4-star legendary something on a bot. But the reality is that you see that all the time. It's very common, and I don't really know why that happens. I don't know why there's a need to do that. You know, if you want to make legendaries at someone, if you're going to give them rank 4s, give them then. More than that, after all of these updates that bots have received, they still focus on the player. They still hard focus the standing 2 meters away from them, view from across the map, or even just like fire like the worst idea possible. Like Pulse has this need to focus down the player of
2K SP players facing Revoker builds should be criminal. It is criminal, that's the thing. It absolutely is. Start dancing in front of a Salver player or bot and really kill me. Yeah. Yeah. Just recently, bro. There was I was playing with Sentry and we were both low HP. We were like, oh, it's a Salver bot. Maybe he'll heal us. Bro freaking turns away, heals himself, and leaves. And bro, I mean, bots are gonna be bots. There's no amount of optimization that you could do to the bots that would make them more enjoyable to fight, right? You could make them more like you could make them more like players, but that just makes them smarter, and that just makes them more like harder to defeat. Which in turn means that, you know, your bot matches are just as close. You don't have to be sweating on bot matches, bro. If I had to use my most meta competitive hanger against bots all the time, I would not be playing this game, because that is lame as hell, right? I want to do that. So like, bots are filler. They should never be the star of the show. They shouldn't even be attempting to make bots comparable to players, in my opinion. I think what they have now is relatively fine, and they should just focus on trying to get more players in matches rather than trying to make the bots in the matches do better, perform better, or be more, you know, more human or whatever. Because, you know, them being more human does mean certain benefits for you, you know, but it also means other things, right? That means they'll get you. Yeah, don't spam. You only get one entry.
For anyone else, and I think that's totally unfair, since like the whole point of all of these updates to bot behavior and bot equipment was to make them more akin to regular players. Like, don't make them focus the player on top of that. That's just absurd. All right, so now I want to talk about some of the things that I don't believe are issues but I still see them come up very often. Now, still on the topic of bots, still one that I see a lot is the bots having like a quote team bias, where they will purposely throw.
This is something I hear a lot.
The game for you, or they will purposely do better. The bots on the enemy team are are doing way better than the bots on my team. So that's the complaint that I constantly hear.
People think that that's purposeful. They're like, oh, the bots are rigging the match. The game wants me to lose, and so they make my bots do bad, and they make the enemy bots do good. That's not how it works. Now, the matchmaking will absolutely put you against tougher players, or even tougher bots, as in like item-wise or SP-wise. It'll absolutely do that if you have a really good win streak, and they think, oh well, you know, this guy clearly he can deal with tougher enemies than what he's currently dealing with, so they'll up the ante a little bit for you. They'll absolutely do that. That's what skill-based matchmaking does. But the bots do not specifically target you. That's just what happens when you got RNG. Yeah. It's RNG, but it really shouldn't be. I mean, explain why, though. Because if you queued into a random match with a bunch of random players, it is still RNG as to what kind of players you get, and what they're using, and how useful they are. It's still RNG. What essentially... I know what everybody's argument is, but you have to think through the entire thing, right? You can't just like go halfway and just be like, oh, well, it sounds kind of unfair, so I'm just going to assume that it is. You have to take the argument the entire way. So what would happen if what exactly did they do? Do they specifically make it so that all bots get roughly the same amount of kills and beacons? Because if that's the case, then that means as soon as one of your bots starts to do a bit better because you're helping it out by playing support, your bot is just like, uh-oh, I'm doing too good, time to just sit here and do nothing so that I don't outperform all of these other bots. Bots don't know what you know as skill. Bots don't understand what that is. They have no concept of that. Right? There's no amount of like skill level, with the exception of like, you know, how accurately they're firing or whatever. You know, you can see that the bots do very much get more difficult from like early game and stuff. They're purposely missing you all the time, or they're just like not even firing at you even though you're right there. But then after that, it's basically all or nothing, right? So if you're advocating for equal performance, then you're basically saying that anyone who plays support or any if somehow a bot just happened to get a couple more kills than the enemy bots, then that bot should just stand there and wait to die because it's done its due diligence and it shouldn't be doing anymore. And of course that's dumb. So there's a certain amount of RNG that's going to happen. And yeah, I mean that's what people perceive as the match as being rigged. That is just what happens. There's a threshold for fun. I mean, I agree. That's why I was saying the bots shouldn't be. They should be fillers. Should strictly be filler. They shouldn't be updating the bots to be more human-like. They shouldn't be updating the bots to be more XYZ. What they should be doing is trying to get more players in the match, right? Because if your bot matches are just as difficult as your player matches, then that's ridiculous. Nobody, like, you could say GG to a player, but if you lose to a bot, you know, that's just skill issue. It doesn't feel good. But even still, like, there's going to be some level of RNG to that. And you can't escape it, and if you tried to escape it, you'd make the game worse. That's what I'm trying to say.
And yeah, that's probably true, but it's not purposeful. It's random. The bots are random. If you were to flip a coin 4 times. Sometimes it's going to land all 4 times on heads.
This is it's a good analogy that I'm making here. So like, I do like to make this type of analogy pretty often, because it's basically what people think, right? People think, well, bots are random, which means that they should do about the same on both teams. This is true, but only on average, right? This is true on average, right? If you flip a coin 10,000 times, on average, it'll land half on heads, half on tails. That's not to say that there aren't strings of 8 to 10 heads in a row. You know, like you could take during those 10,000 flips, you'll get really long strings of just random chance. Really long strings, like 20 times in a row you get heads. People take that instance and they're like, see? It's rigged, it's skewed, it's not random at all, because otherwise it should be 50-50. But you're taking a sample out of the sample, essentially, like, which it's disingenuous to some degree. I hate playing with bots. Yeah, I hate playing with bots too, bro. I don't even like. If there's only bots, I will leave the match most of the time. I used to not do that, but it's gotten more aggravating lately, especially since the bots use only really annoying stuff. Like, the only things they use is freaking hemlocks and outlaws. Like, I don't want to deal with that. Not only is it not particularly entertaining, but you're also going to specifically hinder my ability to even, like, enjoy the small amount of whatever that I do have.
Sometimes. It's not going to happen every time, but sometimes it happens. Sometimes it's going to land all 4 times on tails. You're not necessarily going to notice. In fact, I can pretty much guarantee that...
Especially that pity match after you lose. Yeah. See, that's still a theory. It is still a theory, but, like, I'm just saying, it really seems like it. Because I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I do get mostly, like, half... I don't even want to say half, like, mostly bot matches, right? So it is rather likely that I'm not going to get multiple player matches in a row. And I have gotten multiple player matches in a row after a loss as well. So it's like, it's not like it happens every time. But it's consistent enough. Even when I'm regularly getting players, it's consistent enough to where it's definitely a theory, and I'm not really sure how I could, like, prove it. But I definitely think it's the sort of thing that could be happening. And I really want it to stop.
Almost no players actually notice or pay attention to when the bots are favoring their team. I try my best to make sure that I notice when that happens, but, you know, sometimes I won't either.
This is also true. Most people, when they win, they just like, oh, it's because I'm a good player. They just attribute it to skill, and then when they lose, they're like, well, the bots were unfair. They see a one kill difference in the bots. The enemy bots got like 1 or 2 more kills than their bots did, and they're like, see, it's skewed. It doesn't really work like that.
Because we expect to win, right? We expect to be victorious, and in a fair match, we assume that we would probably best the other guy. Even though you might win against someone in a 1v1, like, you're not playing a 1v1. If that's all you wanted, then 1v1 this person, or play 2v2s, or something like that. I don't care. But the whole thing about CPC or any of these other team matches is that you have a team. Now, sometimes your bots are going to be really annoying to try to manage, but that's just part of the game. They are genuinely, though, random, and they are not ever, I will repeat, they are not ever strictly biased against you. Now, you might say, well, when I start winning a bunch of games, then I always get this one game where the bots are against me, and I end up losing. It's like, well, that's just what happens.
if you get a bunch of times where the coin doesn't land all 4 heads in a row, if you keep doing it, eventually it will. And that's the one thing that you're just like hyper focusing on that one thing. So that's also kind of the thing. Is like people are like, oh, when I have a good win streak, then they'll give me a hard match. But yes, they'll increase possibly the bot like equipment. They'll give you harder, like tougher bots, not necessarily like skill wise. They might also give you tougher players. But also just in general, I mean, what else is going to happen? There are 2 possible scenarios when you're on a winning streak. Either you continue that winning, either you lose that winning streak at some point, or you just continue winning forever with no exception. Obviously, you're not going to continue winning every single match for the rest of time. So at some point, you're going to lose. To then call that loss as a rigged match because you were winning is like, bro, oh, you're gonna lose at some point. But again, it goes back to the if I win, it's skill, if I lose, it's rigged. That type of mentality. Poseidon, hello. Oh, Yusuf, I know. It's still going to be frustrating. I'm frustrated with bots. Bro, I just cannot deal with bots right now. In fact, I think they cranked up the bots' difficulty a bit too much, to a point where, like, I actually have to sort of try hard on them, and I really, really don't want to do that. If I'm playing bots, I want it to be just messing around. I want to be able to just mess around, do whatever I want, and not have to worry about losing the match. But no, like they'll beat me, and that's why I just like I don't even bother playing bot matches half the time. Cheating bots, shooting through shields. Okay, so the cheating bots is a completely different thing that I don't know enough about. There are definitely certain things that bots do that are literally impossible for players to do. I'm talking like fire savants and hit people that are literally behind you that couldn't possibly be in your lock. I just recently, I'm getting a Scorpius Javelin arrayed by enemies. I'm not even spotted, right? Like I'm just chilling. The bot cannot see me, but it shoots me with the Scorpius thing anyway. That's been an issue. It's been an issue and then been fixed at least like 6 times now, right? Where it's like it's an issue for a while and then they fix it and then it's an issue again and then they fix it. It's ridiculous. That's a very recurring one. There was the machine gun particle beams, where the bots that used particle beams, they could just fire the blast from it just like over and over and over and over again. And they wouldn't actually have to charge it up or even reload. And their solution to that, by the way, which was literally just to stop giving bots particle beams. Like they didn't even attempt to figure out why it was happening or fix the issue. They were just like, okay, we'll just stop giving the bots particle beams. Which is like, okay, great. But there's other things too. The bots certainly don't have the same restrictions that players do, and I don't really know why. I don't really know exactly how it works. So I'm just gonna let it be what it is. Ray, hello. How are you? Yeah, even when you're in stealth, sometimes they'll hit you. Game called Clash Royale, where you have a really nice trophy system. Every win you get 30 trophies. Every defeat you lose 30. Yeah, I think I suggested it as well. I suggested to the devs recently. I was like, there should be
there should be leagues, right? Because currently there's like what, you know, the divisions or whatever, but the divisions don't really mean anything. But I think there should just be like general, like legitimate leagues. Leagues that are based mostly on SP. And if you're in a higher league, you get higher rewards for doing certain things. This would also keep people from wanting to tank, because if they tank, they get less rewards. Right? I think if that is managed correctly, it'll reward players for moving up. Because, I mean, like, again, nowadays, you know, you grind tournament for how long to get 1,200 A coins, which you then have to do, like, 8 more times just to buy one legendary item. Like, come on now. That's not going to happen. And how often do you win Grandmaster in tournament? Ridiculous. So yeah, like, you know, the amount of, but obviously you can't be giving people like 3,000. You can't be giving like, you know, 2K SP people. You can't be giving them like 3,000 A coins every few days or something like that. Like, you can't go too crazy with it for everybody. It should scale a little bit. So I think if you have an actual league system, which doesn't reset every month, a league system that's mostly based on SP, rewards people who play in higher SPs. You're encouraging people to upgrade their stuff. You're encouraging people to not tank. Well, you're discouraging people from tanking, and you also, you know, you also create just that level of like competitiveness. I mean, think of like War Robots, for example, right? They have a league system, and Champions League is the highest league, I'm pretty sure. There's maybe like a top 500 thing that's like a Predator League or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember. But for the most part, Champions League is like the high league, right? It's considered, you know, it's considered impressive to be in that league, right? And so people legitimately compete to be there. And that's something that Mech Arena certainly could have. And something that it could benefit from having. But also highlight any broken weapons. I don't know what that's in response to. War Robots was peak. I kind of agree. The War Robots back in the day was pretty good. I actually really... After the Mercury meta, it kind of went downhill. I thought the Mercury meta was actually pretty manageable. Because if you just, like, you know, if you timed your ability right, then you could counter it pretty easy. They should focus on the division system. The division system isn't really anything. It's just like you get a reward for moving up a division, and that's it. No, what I'm saying is completely different. I'm saying you get more crates. You get like you get more A coins from tournament. For example, you get more crates from your battle points. You'd have a higher amount of battle points, something like that. Like your rewards in general per match for everything would just be generally higher if you're in a higher league. I'm a big advocate for small amounts of rewards per match. I think, like, if they gave you 1 A coin for every match, that'd be pretty baller, but they're probably not going to do that ever. I don't think the weapons and mechs are balanced enough to give players with winning streaks tougher matchups. Winning chances of 2 KSP players against 3.5 KSP is like none. I'm not really sure what you mean. I mean, yes, the weapon balance is pretty bad. The mech balance is actually pretty decent. You know, if you have
common stuff and uncommon stuff, you're probably gonna lose to like enemies that have epic stuff. So like if they're tanking, they're probably gonna win because you know that's the reason that they're tanking is because it's basically cheating. And you know if the bots have really strong stuff, then I mean I've already said that I don't think bots should be using like freaking tier 9 stuff while you're in tier 3. I think that's ridiculous and unacceptable. 5 A-coins per match? You wish. You wish. Nah, you'd have to do the math. Because the thing is, like, obviously they don't want people to make absolute bank or get, like, 5,000 A-coins every single day, right? So you have to do the math before even considering something, before sending any type of recommendation to the devs. You have to make sure that it is something that they would actually genuinely consider. Because, yeah, you can just ask to give everybody 10,000 free A-coins every other weekend, but, like, yeah, that'd be great. Everybody would like it, but it's not going to happen. And you know it's not going to happen, so there's no point in asking. So you have to make sure it's a reasonable request, and the first thing that you do is you do the math. You figure out how many A-coins is the most amount of A-coins I could get in a single day, and would I consider that to be too much, right? Not from a perspective of, like, I want to make as much as possible, but from a perspective of, like, trying to make sure that the game economy doesn't completely break. What is they give better rewards based on your SP? That makes some sense because the higher level items cost more. As you move up, it helps you acquire those higher level items. Exactly, yeah. Now, I mean, like, let's say legendary items cost like 3 times as much as epic items. You shouldn't necessarily get 3 times the rewards for being in higher SP, but, you know, it should scale some, is definitely what I'm saying. And it should scale enough to where people who otherwise would be tanking would decide, like, hey, it's worth risking a loss playing in this higher SP and getting this reward rather than playing at this lower SP and getting a guaranteed smaller reward. You got to make sure that it's worth that risk, right? Which to some degree means that you have to make it a certain percent. I guess you could say if your odds of winning in a higher league is like 50-50 and your odds of winning in a lower league are like 100%, then you'd want to make sure that the rewards in the higher league are more than double that of what's in the lower league, which I don't think is entirely practical. But, you know, there's obviously they'd need to fix the tanking issue regardless. But it would be a way to kind of discourage people from tanking, I guess you say. Fortune keys are even hard to come by. Actually, I actually think fortune keys are really easy to get, and people don't give them enough credit. Like, even in, what is it, like, novice tournament bracket, you get like what, between 4 to 6 fortune keys for being on top of that, which is not very difficult. And it's like, that's not bad, you know? Like, you could save quite a bit pretty quickly by getting that. I think the big thing is, like, you know, don't break your back trying to be first. Like, settle for 2nd, 3rd place, even 4th or 5th. You'd still get a decent number of fortune keys.
I'm trying to say is, like, it is just random. And that's just the way, that's just the nature of randomness.
Fortune creates a remaining
and the
source
last
of
thing
A-coins.
That
They
I
can
want
get a
to
good amount of
mention
A-coins, bro.
that is a non-issue is one that probably a lot of people were expecting to hear was an issue.
So, I'm going to skip this part, because this was me rambling about how the matchmaking was actually not... the matchmaking was actually fine. The tankers obviously were an issue, but the general matchmaking was not really an issue. At the time of uploading
It was kind of funny, actually. At the time of uploading this, that was definitely the case. I think like less than a week after uploading this video, they made major changes to the matchmaking that really messed a lot of stuff up, and people were getting a lot of really unfair matches. They're still getting rather unfair matches, so I don't think that the matchmaking is fine anymore. But at the time of uploading this, I think it genuinely was. And I mean, even still, it's better than people will make it out to be. It's better than people make it out to be. Because people take SP too seriously. Right? They take SP way too seriously. If you talk to somebody, this has been my experience anyway. This has been my experience. When someone talks to me about how they're like they're a 4K SP player and they faced a 7K SP player, it's so unfair that they fought this player. I would say about 60% of the time, if you press them on it, they actually won that match. They will admit that they won that match, but they still think it's unfair because of SP advantage, whatever. Like, no, it's a skill-based matchmaking. They put you together in the same match because you are a more experienced 4K player, and this other guy that has 7K SP bought a lot of stuff, and he doesn't know what he's doing. And so you're on relatively even terms. Maybe they'll beat you, maybe they won't. But this is very often what does happen. Now, the matchmaking, of course, is scuffed as hell, especially if you play tournament, bro. Freaking, you'll get all kinds of crazy stuff in tournament. So there's no excuse for that. And I'm not like defending the matchmaking or anything. I think it's pretty bad. It's definitely worse than it was last year. But it is interesting. It is definitely interesting to note. Like, you gotta kind of understand. It's like people really try to oversell how unfair it is when they think it's unfair. And most of the time, or close to half the time at very least, I would say most of the time when I press them on it, but I haven't really been pressing people on it lately, so I guess I don't really know. But I would wager about half the time when people are in relatively unfair SP matches, and I'm not talking about like the 4K SP versus 12K SP or whatever. That's obviously matchmaking stupidness. But I'm talking like, when it's like a 2-3K SP difference. About half the time, the person with the lower SP still wins. But again, it goes back to I'm the skilled player. I should win, and if I don't win, it's because the game's rigged or there's something that's scuffed about it, right? If I win, it's skill. If I lose, it's rigged. That type of mentality. And so anytime they come across any type of like real harsh resistance, they very much, if they can make it seem like it was an unfair match, then they'll definitely try to do so. But that's just human nature in general, I would say. There's no overselling 2K versus 24K. Yeah. I mean, obviously, that's an example of just egregious bad matchmaking, right? I'm talking about the ones that are like actually closer, the ones that are slightly more manageable. I don't care how good the 4K player is, and I don't care how bad the 12K player is. There's basically zero chance that a 4K beats a 12K player. It could literally be it could literally be the 12K player's first time picking up the game. They could be a 5-year-old, they probably still beat you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's that scuffed at that. There's obviously a point where it's like so scuffed that it's obviously matchmaking bullcrap. But no, I'm talking about the the closer ones, the ones that are a little bit more subtle. Legendary mechs should not exist below 4-star. I agree with that. I think allowing people to buy low-rank legendary stuff, low-rank epic stuff, is really nice in terms of allowing people to spend less but still get the thing. But the thing is, like, it really messes up low SP matches.
You know, you get somebody, bro, I had an alt account. I have not played it for a long time, but I had an alt account a few months ago. I have freaking Guardian, Slingshot, Arachnos. Actually, no, I don't even think I had Guardian. I had Ares, Arachnos, Slingshot. No, actually, not. I don't think I had Arachnos either. I think I got Arachnos after I got Guardian. Slingshot, Paragon, Ares, and MD. That's right, because MD only costs credits. So I had those. I went into a match. Bro had freaking. He had a double long arm 8 Deathwalker. It was a rank 3 Deathwalker. I'm like, bruh. I mean, I beat him because he's a nerd, but like, that's the sort of thing that. It was just because I was an experienced player, right? Like, it was an alt account, right? If I was an actual new player and I didn't really know what I was doing, I'd have been cooked. So, like, that's the sort of thing that I think I shouldn't see. The way that I see it, a good way to make it so that you can buy low rank stuff without, you know, because again, some people would much rather spend small amounts of money and then large amounts of resources, right? Like Sanji, for example, one of my clanmates. He'll usually buy like rank 3 offers because those are usually, it's like $10-15. It's fine, it's manageable. You know, you got better things to spend your money on, but you play the game often enough that you can get A coins and stuff and rank it up after a while. You know, as long as you're not in any hurry to upgrade it. And so that's fine. And I think that's a good thing to do. You definitely don't want to take away the option of buying things for cheaper. Because I think that's a thing that a lot of other games don't have, is the opportunity to buy things at a cheaper cost. Because otherwise, it's like War Robots, for example. The only time they'll sell it to you for cheap is after they nerf it, right? Otherwise, it's like either you buy the OP thing, or you don't buy the OP thing. And that's just kind of it. But the option to buy at low ranks is good. What I think they should do is they should only allow you to buy the things that you have unlocked, right? So let's say I want to buy a rank 3 Surge. I should not be able to do that unless I have unlocked tier 7 in the Gear Hub already. If I haven't unlocked tier 7, I have no business owning a Surge. That's my opinion. Got one friend to play Mech Arena and he was hooked after a few tankers. He quit. Yeah. Tankers are in the game, bro. It's so selfish what they do, honestly. Like, it's pathetic. They go around crying and complaining about how they deserve A-coins and they're gonna tank because the game isn't generous enough giving them enough A-coins and that they deserve these A-coins. But they're driving everybody away. They're the reason that the game, like, ultimately if the game dies, it's going to mostly be because of tankers. But they'll continue complaining and pretending like they're in the right. Well, anyway, I'm pretty sure that was the last thing I talked about.
It's almost always a lot more fair than you think.
Yep. Basically what I said about small SP differences. Again, like not egregious ones, but like 4K versus 7K. Usually those are actually a lot closer than people are willing to admit. And that's because the game actually sees that as a potentially good match. I mean, the game wants it to be a close match, right? They don't want one side to steamroll the other. That's what happens when people tank. And they definitely don't want people tanking. I have heard some people saying that, like, the devs purposely keep tanking as a thing for XYZ reasons. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like I literally just said, if the game dies, it's going to be because of tankers. The more people tank, the less new players even want to join, first off. And second off, if there's one thing that Mech Arena doesn't want you to do, it's to get easy resources, right? So they don't want you tanking on like your tournaments and stuff and getting a bunch of acorns from that, right? They want you to have to work for it. New tournament feels like tanking, yeah. I mean, it's legal tanking. Anyone who feels bad playing it, don't feel bad. Honestly, that's Plarium's fault. I mean, you could stay away from it just for the sake of the other players that you might run into, but like, at the end of the day, it's Plarium's fault. I would not blame anybody who plays it. If you're running into like people with freaking negative SP. Ridiculous. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, that was basically everything. We talked about a lot of things. We spent about 30 minutes trying to figure out why the audio didn't work. What else did we do? I could tell you what I didn't do, and that was sleep. I have gotten 0 sleep. I was actually editing a video. I was editing it's a video around the Orion Shield Pierce implant, which behaves in a very strange way and probably doesn't do the thing that you think it does. But there's a part to that video that I think I could add that makes sense to add, and I should probably add it to some video at some point. So I think I'm just gonna wait. It's kind of part of the reason why I decided to stream. I was gonna stream this at some point eventually anyway. And it works out because I was able to do this giveaway thing. But then, yeah. So I was editing that video, and I was like, I should probably add this thing, but it would require me to have the test server active on both my my computer and my phone, which my phone doesn't currently have it, so. And I kind of don't want it to have it at the moment. For various reasons. What's negative SP? It was a joke, is what it was. When Plarium says tougher matchups in higher brackets, they really mean 4K SP versus 12K SP. No, that was happening in every bracket, as far as I'm aware. What they mean is like the bots get higher. Like in the novice bracket, there's literal paragons, whereas like, you know, in the higher brackets, there's like guardians and stuff, and it probably gets up to like legendary mechs if you get to grandmaster or something like that, which is a dumb way to do it, by the way. Yes, it does technically do the thing that I said they should do, which is people with stronger hangers are able to. Here's the silver lining, and this might be the reason that they do it. Basically, it means that, you know, the higher reward goes to people who have stronger hangers, which discourages people from tanking, at least in the higher brackets. But it doesn't discourage people from tanking in lower brackets, really. Well, I guess it kind of does, because like they'll run into higher SP people anyway. But it doesn't do it in a constructive way. It doesn't do it in a way that keeps people from wanting to quit the match because they got absolutely smacked on by people that they had no business running into. And that's a problem. And another problem is, like, instead of increasing the rewards for higher SP people, which I think they should do, they're instead reducing the rewards for lower SP people, which is, you know, it has the same reward scaling effect, but it's in a way that just
makes it more difficult to get resources that are already way too difficult to get. So if that's the system that they stick with, I'm going to be very disappointed. But I also think it could just be that the bot scaling system is just a thing that they're just kind of messing with. I don't know. Then the rich get richer and the poor stay poor. The reward scaling is a good idea, though. You know, like so long as lower SP people can still reasonably win lower tournament brackets, right? So long as they can still reasonably win their lower tournament brackets, then there's a level of like reward scaling in there that makes sense, but again, it's a subtractive scaling rather than an additive scaling. And like, I don't think they have any business to be removing rewards from people after like, because everything's so expensive and they still have not really made it any easier to get acorns or anything. Instead of adding ways to get acorns, they're removing it one by one. And that's exactly why I would be incredibly upset if they stuck with that kind of tournament system. Like if they stick with that kind of tournament system, then you could probably, you know, if you decided that the game is cooked after that and you don't want to stay, that's valid actually. Like I would kind of agree with that. Like it may very well be true, which is why I'm really hoping that's not what they're going to stick with. It's because a low SP player needs less acorns, and that's actually correct. Yeah. Which is absolutely true. But again, like, even the Grandmaster prize, which you get maybe once a week, right? The top reward for Grandmaster, if you're really lucky, you'll get it once a week. 1,200 acorns. Even to somebody that has like 5,000 SP, that's probably not even going to be that big of a difference. It's gonna help a bit, but like you can't buy epic things with that. You can maybe buy some rare stuff with that. It's not that much, ultimately. So, you know, again, like I'm saying, like, yes, the lower SP people need less acorns comparatively. But, you know, this, they shouldn't be removing the little amount that they can already get. What did they remove, Yusuf? Recently? Nothing, really. But they've removed, like, what used to be regular events. There used to be, like, 2v2 events that came up used to give you like 200 acorns. The specialization, mech and weapon specialization sprees actually used to give you acorns, but they don't anymore. All of them only give you crates now, which is stupid. There's other ones too, I'm sure. Someone's gonna bring up the Vault Blitz, but that was forever ago. Reduced it from 300 to 100, yeah. Was it 300? Yeah, I don't remember. I know at one point it was 200, but yeah, it's like 100. It's 100 now and only sometimes. It used to be like every 2 weeks regularly, but now I think it's only like once a month or something like that. I don't know. It's very infrequent, that's all I know. Gotten in the top 3 before, but usually the top player is 5,000 points above me, so I just don't try. And you shouldn't. It is legitimately, it is not worth that much time and effort. And that is my point. That's my point, is the amount of time and effort you have to put in to get 1,200 acorns is absurd. Because 1,200 acorns is actually not that much. So they would have no business reducing the amount of acorns that lower SP people are getting by keeping a
a bot scaling system that basically hard locks lower SP people out of the Grandmaster bracket. It would be very unfair. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. It definitely has potential. I like it in concept. The idea of a limited number of matches is really nice. Because that means that instead of just whoever has the most free time, you can just play your 8 battles, play it whenever it's convenient for you. Whoever does better wins. That's how a tournament is. But I don't think tournament was... Yeah, I don't think tournament ever should have been the main way to get A-coins. I think tournament should just be like an extra thing, personally, but hey. Do you think they'll ever bring back Vault Blitz? I mean, I doubt it. I don't know why they'd remove it just to add it back. If they were going to add anything, they'd add something completely different. Like, they wouldn't add the exact equivalent, but they'd add something possibly similar that does something somewhat similar. You think it's every alternate week? It certainly doesn't feel like it, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. The nonsense is that when too many people leave, Plarium might make it. Yeah, they might change things, make it better. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I think that if the game starts to die, they may or may not revert the grade update and make everything relatively equally usable again. I think they know that was one of the most controversial things, and one of the things that people kind of disliked the most. And I think they would be willing to revert that if the game starts to go too far under. So if it does happen, then you might know, like, hey, their numbers are dropping hard. But yeah, you're right. By the time they really try to fix it, then it might be too late. My hope is that... I mentioned this toward the beginning of the stream, by the way. There was an article that I read. It was an interview of one of the developers of Mech Arena. And toward the end, they mentioned that in 2025, they wanted to focus... first off, they said that each year they focus on different things. 2024, I imagine, was just them focusing on like adding more mechs, more weapons, which, to be fair, was kind of needed, because like there's still not very many mechs and weapons. You might think that it's more than enough, but I made a comparison to like war robots, for example. There's so many different mechs, so many different weapons, that you can make all kinds of crazy combinations that are really entertaining or actually like very effective for like all these different, and not even, you don't have to use meta weapons or anything. You don't have to use meta mechs or anything, but you could make some very interesting and effective combinations just by using all of the different, specific perks of each mech and weapon. And that comes strictly with a large amount of variety, which Mech Arena simply does not have. So I think what they wanted to do is they wanted to add some item variety this year. What they did say specifically, what was specifically in the article, though, is that 2025, they want to focus on quality of life changes, new game modes, player retention, which is essentially like they want to make sure that you want to play the game and not quit, which could include fixing tanking, better matchmaking, more A-coins. It should include all of those things, really. What did I say? I said quality of life, player retention, more game modes, clan features was another thing that they mentioned. I think that was mostly it. But yeah, it's like, I guess they focus on different things per year, which kind of makes sense, I guess. But I don't really know how most companies do it. But also, what a lot of you may not know is that Plarium got bought out somewhat recently. It is no longer owned by a gambling company. It's owned by, I don't remember what it's called, the company that
owns like the Bloons franchise, which is very, very popular, very well-respected franchise, as well as I think one or two others that I'm not personally familiar with. But like, if you're familiar with Bloons in any way, then you know, people like that, and it's very free to play friendly. Yeah, good stuff. And so they own that now. They were not bought by Bloons. They were bought by the company that owns Bloons, which is like a, you know, it's a different parent company. But it's not, again, it's not Aristocrat anymore, right? It used to be Aristocrat, the gambling company that owned it, but now it is not. And so that may or may not also mean that we're going to get a lot less pay-to-win gambly features that are added, and they're going to be a lot less aggressive with the monetization, which could be fantastic, especially on a year where they're going to be focusing on like quality of life and stuff. I think there's some real potential in 2025, and I think that actually might be part of the reason that we got some really fantastic updates. Like, we got several mech releases in a relatively short period. We got several weapon releases in a relatively short period. I don't want to say that that's going to be the new norm, but it could be. They made the changes to the implants. Literally, there's basically no downside to the changes that they made to implants. Like, it's fantastic and everybody loves it. And I think that's partially, again, due to the change in ownership. I think they want to focus on keeping players playing. They want to make people want to play rather than want to pay, right? So there's potential, you know. I'm not saying that it is the reason. I'm not saying that all of those changes. It's also like the holiday season, right? So a lot of this stuff, especially like, you know, free packs, promo codes, all this kind of stuff, all this stuff that's happening, it's the holidays. Most of it will not stay. But permanent changes like the implant thing is a very positive change, and I think that's quite possibly influenced by the change in ownership. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, like, if there's any year that's really going to turn it around, I think it could be next year. And if it doesn't, that may or may not be a good indication that the game is not going to last for very long. You know, because this is, you know, it's a year under new ownership, first off. And they're also allegedly going to be focusing on player retention, quality of life, all this good stuff, and not just, you know, constant bug fixes or whatever the hell they do. They don't fix bugs, I'm kidding. They create bugs. It's a hobby. And they're way too good at it. But, yeah, like, if anything could happen, then it's gonna be then. And if it doesn't, we might be in a bad way. A new category of mods would be so nice. I think there's definitely a lot of things that they could add to the different mod slots that are not the things that are currently there, right? Like the slot A mods, there could be ones that aren't shields. It could be something else. Like, and I really want them to add variety to the mods, actually, because it's really pathetic that it's just like there's the only amount of choice that you have to make is how much do you want to spend, right? Do you go the cheap route or the expensive route? That's the only real choice that you make in terms of mods. Speed boost mod, they might. It could be kind of ridiculously OP. I don't know if I'd like to see that on fast mechs, but they might do it. They might not. I'm actually kind of thinking they might do... damn, my nose is very itchy, I'm sorry. They, what was I gonna say? They might do like a damage boosting module. They have like HP boost ones. They could do like a damage boost one. They could have ones that possibly influence the ability in some way. I don't know. I doubt there's going to be one that gives you a dash or a jump. No.
Maybe, but I very much doubt it. There could be one that gives you like a short amount of stealth. I think there very well could be and quite possibly should be one that is basically like a Redeemer ability. Not that it backtracks, but that it just erases all of your debuffs. But it has like a really long cooldown period or something. So it's like the first time your debuff is applied, it just immediately clears it. I think that could really help against all the freaking EMP and whatever crap that's always going on. It would also encourage people to use like Ember Gun as opposed to Revoker on a Surge, right? Because you dash in, you apply the what's it called? You apply the weaken with the Ember Gun. You apply that to trigger that mod, and then you hit them with the EMP with the Surge, and so that would actually make Revoker Surges slightly less useful, which is great. That would be a good thing to see. HP regen mod, they could do. I think that's a very possible one. Yeah, most likely it would go in slot C with just the general HP increase one. There's a lot of things that they could do. There's a lot of very good ideas that they could add. Will they add them? I have no idea. And I know these things take time as well. It's hard for them to release anything without everything going to crap. So it's like, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it takes them a long time to kind of figure it out. But who knows? Who knows? HP regen to replace Galvanic makes sense. That is true. That is true. Anyway, I will call it there. Because I think that's about everything that I wanted to talk about. In terms of this video, I don't have like a scoreboard or anything, but I will say there's a few things that they made, there's a few things they improved on, there's a few things that got worse. I don't think anything really got that much worse, but most things did not improve much, if at all. So that's, yeah, kind of the TLDR from the past year, I guess. Hopefully very hopeful about next year, but we will have to see. Swedish company called Modern Times. Okay. They own Forge of Empires. Never heard of it. Or maybe I have, but is it just like the class, the freaking token medieval turn-based whatever game that's basically a ripoff of Raid Shadow Legends? Is that what it is? Like literally every other game nowadays? Give a mod that gives you an Aegis Dome. They might make one that gives you a personal shield. Aegis Dome, I don't think so. But actually a personal shield, like a weak personal shield, does kind of make sense. Thank you for allowing me to attend one of your streams. Well, you are welcome, though I wasn't going to, like, disallow it. I don't think I can stop you from watching regardless, but, you know, the only way I'd stop you from talking is if you were, like, spamming or whatever. So. You look like one of the people from the movie Shazam. I have not seen that in a hot minute, and I'm not going to take guesses as to who I look like, so... Yeah. Isn't slot A already personal shields? Yeah. No, what I'm thinking is like a triggered personal shield. I think shields on trigger is a really nice way of adding shields that are slightly different.
Because, like, okay, like, they have, the shield, the regular shields, and they have the other shields that are multiple, they have multiple layers. The benefit is that they can guarantee to take multiple shots. The downside is that they have less overall HP. I'm thinking of, like, and I don't even think it'd be that hard to do. Basically the same thing, perimeter and blockade, but as triggers, where it's like, when your HP reaches below 50%, then the shield triggers. And you might think that that's pointless, but actually, that would be really, really incredibly strong for people who have healers or any way of healing themselves. Because that means so long as they can keep themselves above 50% HP, they're chilling. And if they ever do get rushed and they're in a pinch, they get below 50% HP, they get an active shield. And that could be potentially really good. The downside to that, of course, is that you could potentially get just like freaking one shot. And, you know, they could tweak the stats to the shield itself. But anyway. Appreciate y'all for being here. I appreciate everybody who stuck with me throughout the first 30 minutes. Because that was, yeah, that was weird and irritating, honestly. I don't know why the audio was doing that. I don't think I've ever had an issue with it before, but oh well. But, yeah. Otherwise, once again, I mean, the thing in the pinned comment, or the pinned message, you know, you can put your ID in the chat. But also, if you, you know, leave your ID as a comment after the stream's over, perfectly okay, you'll still be entered. I will, so usually what I do, let me explain real quick. Usually what I do, there's a few things I want to mention, is one person wins, and then they have a small chance of getting 10,000 acorns. That is usually what happens. Sometimes they do, sometimes they win it, most times they don't. But this time, I decided to make it a guaranteed 10,000 acorns. So whoever wins is guaranteed to get 10,000 acorns. But the difference is, you know, it's going to go through multiple days. It'll end on the 25th. Be a lot of entries, so it's going to be slightly lower odds for you to win, but that's just the way that it is. I do want to thank my channel members, of course. They are mostly the ones that are funding this, so, you know, if you want to say thank you to any channel members that might be around right now, I think Yusuf is the only one that's active at the moment, but yeah. Yeah, there's people in Discord as well, though I don't really want people entering through Discord. It's only as like a last resort. But yeah. Otherwise, I believe that will be it for me. Appreciate y'all.